Morning, everybody. It is a Saturday, October 5, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. And of course, now we stream this show as if I knew, wearing an old t-shirt, coming to work. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather, 88 the high today, yet it's going to be some windy conditions. 80 on Sunday and back to work Monday, 83 degrees. This is perfect weather. The motorcycle is outside, all's well in the world and ready to go. Got a lot to do today, and the Tina Peters thing has been interesting to me, especially the reaction that I witnessed or heard on talk radio. They're making this woman into some fallen statue. It's just not true. The woman is a felon. The woman pulled off or attempted to pull off an abatement of the Constitution. How does she remain? What do they say? They don't say a hero. A heroine. How does she remain that? She didn't talk radio. So we're going to try and talk about that this morning. Also, there's a book out, From Regret to Rape. The reality of some women do lie about being raped. And here's how this young man's life got devastated. He's coming in studio. We're going to talk about the debate and what happened. And I think in that one final second that I watched it, and I thought Vance was doing extremely well. And then he refused to acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. He choked. If you watch that, you can literally see him choke. But before all of that, last week on the award-winning show, we got into the song Imagine, because people were talking about Karl Marx and talking about communism. And I don't know, and it was interesting, the fireback on me daring to say that John Lennon sang a song called Imagine. And I guess we could do it again, but it's all about how things can be. And this is what Marx's promise was. Everything is taken care of, to each according to his need, from each according to his ability. There's no heaven, there's no hell, there's no borders, there's no religion, nothing to live or die for, and there will be ultimate peace, which was really what Marx was saying, that ultimately we will all live in peace in the valley. So everybody got mad at me, and Then, out of nowhere, I was actually on the motorcycle, and this came to me. Do you remember, as I do, Don Mclean and Miss America Pie? And I'm riding along in that Zen thing you get into. And I remembered when Lennon read a book by Marx. This was one of the great lines in Miss America Pie. And what is Don Mclean, who was on the inside, he knew who was what, and they're all, in the music biz at the time. And I've always believed what John Lennon was John Lennon. He was one of those, what they call them, limousine liberals. He was for the working man riding around in a Rolls Royce. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what Don Mclean said about John Lennon. You ready to do this? Okay, let's hit it. There you go. And when the music died, it was Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens. And they go down in the cornfield and lose their lives. And that's what Don Mclean's singing about, but he's doing this modern, contemporary, people think about, is it Mick Jagger, is it Bob Dylan, is it Joan Baez? Who were the different people in that song or in those songs? But that one hit me. I said, Lennon, one more time, because it's uppy and it's Saturday morning. One more time, listen to what Don Mclean says, and then think about what John Lennon wrote. Here it is. Singing. And the airplane was Miss America Pie. That's one of those really spooky, according to what I've read, that they were choosing a name. Did you ever hear this one? It's really spooky story that they flipped a coin who was going to ride. And Waylon lost. Waylon Jennings got off the airplane and got into the bus. And it haunted him, according to people that I knew that knew Waylon, that it haunted him that he got off, Buddy got on, Buddy died, because he was in Buddy's band. And
I didn't know that.
Didn't you know that? Anyhow, so Buddy had a motorcycle. And John Lennon, listen to me. Buddy Holly had a motorcycle. Waylon Jennings bought it. And he had it with him all of his life. And when the Crickets had been in New York and had come back to Texas, they were from Lubbock, Texas, and they went to maybe it was a motorcycle dealer in Dallas or Houston or someplace, one of the bigger cities, and they go into the dealership, and the guy won't sell them any bikes. They look like a bunch of that they were just kids, and he blew them off. And they went and bought bikes. And I'm trying to think, the Crickets, maybe the Crickets had Triumphs or something, but Buddy had something else. And maybe it was a Beezer or a Beamer or something, not a Beamer, but a BSA, or had a one different. Somebody who really knows motorcycle history will send me a text or a call. But that motorcycle, and I saw the pictures of it. I remember it was a red bike, and it sat in Waylon's house. I don't think he wrote it, but I think he had it. So that was just really good stuff. And so, those guys died, and that wrote that song. And he's writing about music. And so he said Lennon read, and it wasn't Nikolai Vladimir. It was John read the book on Marx. All right. So good morning, everyone. Having said that, now I watched the debate the other night. The vice presidential only one debate, and J.D. Vance refused to acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. And it's this vice presidential debate. It was Tuesday, and downplayed the seriousness of the January 6th attack. And by the way, from my reading, 140 law enforcement officers were injured on that day. He also declined to say whether he would seek to challenge the results of this year. And toward the end of the debate, Tampon Tim didn't do that well. When it opened up, then he kind of looked like Don Rickles. He's got that Rickles thing going. I like the clothes, like Khrushchev stuff, and it doesn't fit. And he was actually Don Knotts. Remember Don Knotts was so nervous. And then towards the end of the debate, the governor asked the senator to affirm that Donald Trump lost the last election. And I was talking to some friends about this last night or night before last. They timed this out. There's one thing about the Democrat side of this. They're far more skilled. The way that Vice President Harris handled former President Trump, that was coached and skilled. And so they went to almost to the end of the debate, and Waltz asked, did he lose the 2020 election? And Vance replied, Tim, I'm focused on the future. And I went, hang on. And Waltz said, that's a damning non-answer. I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. That's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Now, he notes that the reason former Vice President Mike Pence wasn't there. I thought that was a great line. He was a target of hang Mike Pence from the pro-Trumpers who invaded the Capitol in 2021. And Vance dodged the question. And then the next, I don't know. I mean, I watch stuff like that, and I'm tuned into it. I thought that Vance was, it's like a prize fight. Vance is ahead on points. He's doing really well. And then that loaded question bangs up, and there he comes. So we're going to talk about Tina Peters. We have a bunch of stuff going on. We got some calls here. All right, we take them. It's going to be a really nice day. 88, 80, 83 tomorrow. 303-696-1971. I think this is Marty. Marty, you're up on the radio show. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Peter. And, here we go again. Let me just say it like this. Okay. You're never going to be convinced that the 2020 election was anything other than sincere. And I will never be convinced that Joe Biden got 81 million. We don't need to go into all that, right?
No, you bring it up and then you say we can't say it. Then why are all of these big outfits paying off? Because why didn't Fox News bring you, Marty? But let me finish. Why didn't Fox News bring you, Marty, to Delaware to show those boys instead of paying that $887.5 million? Why didn't they bring Marty from Denver in to tell that jury this just did not happen? Why were you not brought there, huh?
Well, do you think there's a yearning desire?
Now you said advance. You didn't answer a question.
Well, I wasn't invited, but I would have absolutely presented the evidence disclosed in Pennsylvania and narratives and how they change. And that's why I said, Peter, you're closed-minded, and so am I. So why not just set that?
It's not closed-minded.
Well, how do you explain what happened before your very eyes? But see, that's the whole point of the derailment. I knew you couldn't have that conversation, so why are we going to debate it? We're going to sit aside and think.
Listen to me, Marty. What I brought up was Vance during the debate. I didn't say, hey.
Tina.
I brought up Vance during the debate, and he has this moment, and he choked.
So, Peter, you felt like he was supposed to use that platform to say, I hereby denounce what Donald Trump has done?
He can't.
That's crazy.
He could. No, that's right. He could not tell the truth.
Well, okay, but in my heart, am I a liar? Because when I saw all those states close and reopen and then they changed state constitution, am I not wise? But let's don't do that conversation today, Peter. It's going to ruin the call.
No, it won't ruin the call. We have been over it so many times. It's ad nauseum. I'm telling you. Then all I can say is, and OEN settled, Newsmax settled, the lawsuits are coming. People are settling left and right. Believe me, there's one looming here, and they will settle.
Yeah.
And so maybe that morning you can call up and we can discuss it again. But all I brought up was what I looked at watching the debate. I said Vance was really, really, really doing well. And then when he declined to say whether he would seek to challenge, and I thought to myself, dude, you choked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did Tim Walz seize the moment, or did he kind of?
I just said I said Walz looked like Don Rickles. He looked like
perfect.
He looked like Nikita Khrushchev when you turn him sideways, and he wasn't doing well. He actually, he's Don Knotts. Remember Don Knotts? How shaky he was.
Yeah.
That's what he looked like. He looked like Don Knotts. But
well said. And do you think the American public saw the refusal to admit about 2020 as the moving point, or just that kind of bum? But you do know. You have a heart. You're doing this on a regular basis.
No, listen to me. Listen to me.
What turned people off more, do you think?
Well, I look at the debate polling data, and it kind of breaks down 51-49, depends on, who it is. The Dems thought he did. Repubs thought he did. I'm just telling you what I watched. That's all.
Fair.
And when he made that one line, I thought that was a good line too. When Waltz notes that the reason that Mike Pence isn't there, and I thought that was pretty telling. That was a good shot. But yeah, I thought Vance came out. Vance was on top of him.
Yeah. I agree. It wasn't necessarily a fair fight. Last thought, Peter. I'd love to hear your take as far as is the emergency response that we're seeing in the Appalachians is that the absolute worst, most disgraceful element we've seen of the Biden administration yet, or how do you rate it? Because we've got essentially a whole community, thousands of people are going to end up dead from this. How do you grade it? How was their response from FEMA and Alejandro Mayorkas?
Oh, Joe Biden is a D- on every and all level. I mean, foreign policy levels, we haven't even begun to talk about that. Domestic policies, all of it. I mean, Joe Biden is a D-. It's hard. I mean, I can think of administrations that are worse. I don't know of any president that has become mentally what Joe Biden has become.
Right.
Roosevelt knew that he was, and tried to bluster his way through it. He was sick as a dog. And Ronald Reagan knew in the final weeks or months of the Reagan administration, they knew. And Reagan knew. Reagan wrote a letter about it. But he was honest about it. And one thing about one thing about Ronald Reagan, he was brutally honest. And he told his wife, told his cabinet, look, I can feel this thing getting away from me. And I heard an interesting story from a guy who, Academy graduate, one of his guys that he went to the academy through with, apparently very brave, very bright, went on to do all kinds of wonderful things in life, was exceptionally gifted, and then found out that he's got dementia. And he went off by himself and took his own life.
Oh.
I mean, he said, there's no reversing that. And he didn't want to put his family through it. And I thought, what a stand-up thing to do. And, I don't know if I'd ever have the guts to do that, but he knew it was coming. And he drove his truck. He lives in New Mexico, or lived in New Mexico, drove up in the Sequoia and took his own life. And I thought to myself, what a ponder to think about, because I've lost so many friends lately. It seems to be, maybe it's just that, your age, your time, but I'm so sick of it. Like, get a phone call.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it's moving faster than ever, Peter. I would just say this as sort of a moment of clarity, and I think your heart will be the same. For all of those that feel justice was served in the Tina Peters case, and that we're now preserved democracy in our election systems as a result of her imprisonment, I just ask them to set with themselves and really look in the mirror. How many illegal aliens are going to vote in this election, Peter? And that's all you need to know about our quality of our election.
Tina
this
Peters,
year, 100,000.
Tina Peters and the conspiracy theorist around Tina Peters attempted to overthrow the Constitution. She's not going to do 9 years. I'm so sick of hearing that. She's not a hero. There's nothing about her that is heroic. Peters allowed a man who the prosecutors say was working with Mike Lindell,
yes,
to make a copy of the Dominion voting system's computer hard drive. She was allowed to hire a consultant to make these copies. And I mean, it just goes on and on. It's duplicitous. And there's nothing to defend. She found nothing. She made a big stink for nothing. And she encouraged a bunch of fill in the blank deniers that she had the goods. And I saw an interview with Lindell the other night. Lindell gave her a bunch of money. She had a lawyer, Harvey Steinberg, who, if I was ever in trouble in Denver, I'd be on the phone to Harvey, right? When the money dried up, Harvey dried up. I mean,
of course.
But that was Lindell's money, and that's going to be another one. She traveled. She left the country. She left the state.
Sure.
She won't do 9. Not a chance.
No, but isn't the 9 meant to send a chill that says, "Don't you dare question these things again"?
We'll do
not. Not at all. Okay.
But she had coming.
Okay, so she deserved it. Well, I just asked though: is the democracy safer with her in jail and migrants voting, or the other way around? I don't know.
The same thing. Question. When Richard Nixon resigned, I mean, there's a series of events. But I'm reading The Life of Jefferson again, which is his new Jefferson book, and the guy had a great line. He said, "When Richard Nixon resigned, you could hear Jefferson laugh." Isn't that wonderful?
Well, I guess. I mean, if you have the opinion of that's, you despise the person, I guess. I mean, we're all on the opposite sides of the fence. You have a sort of special place in your heart of, you hate Donald Trump, you hate Tina Peters, you hate election deniers, and I'm on the other side of the fence saying, how can your eyes? But it's a strong emotion again, strongly against.
At this point in my life, I hate very few things.
Fair. Sure, but there's certainly not a benefit of the doubt like Kamala Harris is getting, because if you hate Trump's character, every American listening to her say, you better thank a union worker for the 40. All that fake. I know Trump cheated on his wife. I don't care about that.
Listen,
what I'm telling you,
that isn't what we're talking about here.
It's a popularity contest.
They always are.
Yes,
and in spite of what people think, it's what it is. It's, do you like this guy or do you hate that guy? And most voting behavior historians say that most voting takes place against someone as opposed to for someone. And people voted against Hillary Clinton because they disliked her so much. It wasn't so much that they were voting for Donald Trump. They were voting against her.
There's an element of that. You're 100% right, Peter. But, if that theory is in fact true, I mean, what Tim Walz and Kamala omit, how it's the same feel though. It's cringe.
But again, it's winning and losing and how it happens. And I've really been reading a lot about this Tyson fight that's coming. And I want to see Mike Tyson rip this kid's head off, but I'm thinking to myself, do you think he can? I don't know.
I know.
You take care. All right, man.
Okay,
we're rolling. Thank you. Very good call as always. All right. So here's we stand. Who's coming up? Jimmy? Jimmy. All right. So all's well in the world. Saturday morning, 303-696-1971. Jimmy will be on the Dan Caplis hotline. I've been waiting to say that. 88 the high. Tomorrow, Sunday, 80. Monday, it's going to be 83 degrees. This is good old 710 KNUS. Welcoming back. Now, this goes back when I was doing M through F. And we met the water pros. And this guy comes over to the family unit and installs the quality of water. And you can remove, they're called forever chemicals, microplastics, hard water with the Water Pros Peter Boyles special. Now, hey, you got to come a long way to get a water softener named after you. But listen to this. There's a whole water softener point of use reverse osmosis drinking water system fully installed for $31.95. I mean, $3,000, $195. Worth it by $1 million. We have one. We've had it for the longest time. Start the process. Go to waterpros.net and sign up for your free in-home consultation. Paul and those guys will come to your house. They really are good guys. They come to your home and test your water and answer your questions and concerns. They'll do all of that in front of you and show you what your water's like. These guys, Water Pros, family-owned, veteran-owned business, dedicated to providing you with the best in water treatment for less than the other guys. Go to the Water Pros, and they'll come do maintenance on it. I'm getting some salt delivered because it goes through filters. Waterpro.com today. Request your free water test or call 303-862-5554. It's 303-862-5554. 303-862-5554 and ask for the Peter Boyles special. But just say hi, make friends, see this guy, and let him come to the house. We're 710 KNUS. Good morning, everybody. It is a Saturday, October 5, 2024, 710 KNUS, 88 to high, 80 on Sunday. Monday, it is 83 degrees. All's well in the world. I get this bunch of text messaging, and some of it is about my mom and dad. But Mr. Boyles, can you help a brother out and say, go Raiders on the air? Not on your life. All right, here he is. Jimmy Sengenberger joins us, and later in the morning, Dick Wadhams will join us. The story is Tina Peters, clerk and recorder of Mesa County. James, thanks, man. Good morning and welcome back. Welcome home for you.
Good morning, brother. Yeah, on Thursday, I was there in the courtroom for the sentencing, and I have to tell you, that was fascinating.
So talk about it.
Well, being there adds a different sort of feeling, because I watched 95% of the trial on the live stream, as you'll recall, because they live streamed the whole thing. And it was very interesting to watch it on the screen, but it's different when you're in the courtroom. You've covered court cases. You've been in these rooms before, so you know when you feel that tension and you can see with your own eyes sort of what's going on and get a sense for the emotion in the room. You can tell why, for example, a little bit more when the judge in this case, Judge Matthew Barrett, really tears into and excoriates Tina Peters, why he's feeling that way beyond just the progression of the trial. But you can tell that really feel viscerally why that's the case. So that added something special and different to me from a point of covering a story like this.
He's being death threatened right now. I read this morning that the Mesa County sheriffs and cops and everybody and it's so typical of, and I can relate to some of it, but the death threats began. I thought, and I'll call it a soliloquy, when he spoke to her, and I watched it like everybody else on tape, but he made such a concise case. And when he got down to it, and he said, you in that essence, you regret nothing. And I just thought it was brilliant. And then I think talk radio has once again failed itself by people trying to make her into something that she really isn't. Come back to this. In state time, you get a good day for you. What do you think she'll do? How much time do you think she'll do?
I've been hearing she'll do 3 years.
Yeah.
And then that sounds about right to me. No. And I think that's very justified. In fact, my column, which is going to be out tomorrow instead of Friday for the Denver Gazette, is entitled Tina Peters Deserves What She Got. Because I really do believe that she got what she deserved.
Absolutely.
And what was appropriate, given, as you heard from the judge. One of the things that I really appreciated about Judge Barrett is that throughout the trial, and then you saw it in the sentencing, he was very deliberate. He would say, here is one possibility for something, in this case, probation. I'm not just going to give you probation because you actually don't qualify, and here's why. Let's go to prison. Here's why you deserve prison time. And I'm going to lay that out. Yes, he was very forceful and strong with his language, but I think fairly on the money. At the same time, he was deliberate for the record in explaining this is why, because they're going to bring an appeal. And I don't think that appeal, Pete, is going to have any legs to stand on, particularly because the judge consistently explained his reasoning very well and very effectively. And that's critical.
I've never seen anything like it, that he took that much time and pronounced, if that's the right way to say it, why he was doing what he was doing. Who all was in the courtroom? Were there any because they never turned it on to the crowd. Did you recognize anyone in the courtroom, James?
A lot of the recognizable people spoke. Matt Crane of the Colorado County Clerks Association.
I think he's, by the way,
impact statement.
Crane's great.
He is. He's a friend, and he does, I think, a really good job and knows his stuff extremely well. And I saw that firsthand when he was my county clerk in Arapahoe County from 2013 through to 2019 or so. He really just did an excellent job in that regard. But you also had two of the county commissioners, a current and a former, one of them, Scott McGinnis, former congressman,
Sure.
former county commissioner, ran for governor. He testified with witness impact statement about the costs on Mesa County,
Yep.
as well as Commissioner Cody Davis. And they did, I thought, a very compelling job at explaining there are real costs, $1.4 million to what Tina did. And then there are so many ancillary costs that you can't necessarily calculate and put a number on because they are impacts on the community. On Tina Peters' side, I found it interesting that among those who spoke on her behalf was Dr. Douglas Frank. Now, Dr. Frank, from the testimony that had been presented, he was sort of the impetus for Tina doing this in terms of planting the seed and saying you can get a feather in your cap. He's on a recording from April 23rd, I think the date was, of 2021, in her office with some folks from her office meeting, and said that you could get a feather in your cap. And he pointed out, he said in that recording, Mike Lindell pays me to go around the country and help expose these things. And he was a character witness, Peter.
No, I don't know what Lindell's role in this will be. He was a bankroller, I believe. And then against court order, she would leave the state in private jets, would she not?
Yes, in fact, what was really funny to me, I found this just uproariously entertaining. Michael Administer, one of her attorneys, the two attorneys that were there for Tina were Colorado attorneys. Michael Administer, who was the sponsor for out-of-state attorneys that they brought in, and John Case, who also happened to be the attorney for Dallas Schroeder, the former clerk of Elbert County, who, by the way, also was a character witness for Tina Peters. But Administer came up and he gave his sort of sentencing argument why they wanted probation, that sort of thing. And in that conversation, it was just, striking to me to see how they were framing this in a way that wasn't providing just from the start the kind of impetus that you need for and the basis that you need for that kind of a probation. The legal team, I thought, was not on the ball in any way, shape, or form for Tina Peters.
Well, but if you got bad ingredients to bake the cake's not coming out. They copied a hard drive. I'm not an expert. I'm not on your level, but they had a hard drive that they copied, and the hard drive was the Dominion voting systems that was used by election offices around the country. And it's a Colorado-based company, and these people were running for their lives half the time, and that's part of what they were trying to steal, and that ends up in the defamation lawsuits as a result, and the settling in the case against Fox for $787 million last year. So, I mean, she was an octopus. She had fingers and she had tentacles and all kinds of different parts of this inane attempt to overthrow the Constitution. So, no, she is as advertised. And
you bring up this hard drive. It is the election server for Mesa County that was copied before and after by a guy named Conan Hayes, who was there pretending to be another guy named Jerry Wood. And that's the crux of this, was that Tina Peters was convicted on multiple counts of attempt to influence a public servant, as well as a conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation. And all of that was a crime, by the way, that had victims, because there were people from the county clerk's office to the Secretary of State's office that were used and taken advantage of in order to get this guy in there to copy those hard drives. And that is the crux of this case, is that these are people who they even testified, they would not have done what they did had they known what was actually going on and who was really there. But for every single person that was involved in this unwittingly, Tina Peters and her associates spun a different story to convince them to get on board. And that was one thing that Dan Rubenstein, the Republican district attorney who was prosecuting this case, he pointed out and said, look, during the arguments at sentencing, this is somebody who would make up whatever narrative was necessary for the person that she was trying to rope into this thing, and is right on in that respect.
Again, it's important. Peters is charged and convicted 3 counts of attempting to influence a public servant, criminal impersonation, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit, and again, to commit criminal impersonation, 1 count of identity theft, first-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, failing to compel with the Secretary of State. Nothing to do with attempt, nothing to do with trying to overthrow an election. So for talk radio, and I mean, it was, I'll use the right word, it was disgusting to listen to on airs after this Peters conviction. And those prosecutors, they said the second image of the election computer was taken after it was upgraded. The next day, they say Peters mailed a package to the guy who you're talking about who had taken the first image, who left before the second one could be completed. And he's not been charged. He's not been charged, has he?
No, neither him nor Sharona Bishop, who also was involved in this scheme, have been charged, and there aren't indications as to whether they won't or not.
America's mom. Yeah, they're going to go get America's mom. You know,
I do want to clarify one thing real quick, Peter, because you listed out all the different charges that she had gotten. 3 of those felony counts, the ones dealing with identity theft and criminal impersonation, except for 1 conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, she was acquitted on 3.
Yes, I know.
But the other 7, including 4 felonies, she was convicted on, and that's the reason why she's doing prison time, is because of those felonies.
And they remanded her over, and where is she now?
I think she's in county jail, as I understood it. She's going to be serving her jail sentence first, and then will be going to prison in about 6 months.
Man, and it doesn't end because.
And keep in mind, Peter, she's 68 years old. So once she'll be 69 by the time, I believe, by the time she gets into prison. And then if she were to serve all the time, she'd be about, 77, 78, something on that order. I'm not sure.
She's not going to do the time. What she'll do.
I agree. She wouldn't do more than a few years.
She'll write a book, and it'll be on talk radio, and they'll lionize it. And I can just see this coming. I think in some ways, she enjoys being sent to prison as a victim, because the victimization of these people has just become so outrageous, and she's not a victim. Yeah, but not by any stretch.
I agree with you completely, except I would say that when she's in prison, because she will do at least some time, I think she will have no choice but to think through some of these things that went on and what she did. The question is, when she comes out on the other side, what happens, especially because, look, I think that soon enough, the people who've been behind all of this and who she's connected with, from Mike Lindell on down, that she will be discarded. She will no longer be somebody that they are really going to care as much about, because her role is done.
It's like you find out now from reading the Kraken, Powell, Tina Peters, who they really are to these people is their tissue paper. Who they really are is that you can wipe your feet on them and drive by. And when Tina Peters wakes up and she's in jail by herself, I think she'll buffet herself, and I think she will write, and she'll make the circuit when she comes out or comes home. But no, I mean, I just finished reading 2 days of Jack Smith, my close personal friend, John Eastman, and all what they were doing. And those people will wipe their feet on Tina Peters. She's gone now. They don't need her. She's not needed. She got played. She played herself. She played other people. But when that judge said, look, that judge said to her, look, you have no regret. And he was right. And he said, you would do it again. And he's right. Because it made her, she was very important, self-important. There's plenty of that going around. But we now know that Trump would put, they'd put the Kraken on hold, and they'd put their feet up on the desk and laugh at her. That's in Jack Smith.
You know, one of the things, when you piece this all together in terms of how we got here with Tina Peters, Trump makes some comments about, he wouldn't accept the results of the election and that he lost. Then other people really took that ball and ran with it, like Mike Lindell. Lindell shoots his mouth off making these claims, influenced by different people like the likes of Joe Oltmann. And then you get to the March of 2021, and Dominion sues Mike Lindell in a $1 billion lawsuit. And he goes, oh, crap, I need to find some stuff that I can use
That's right.
to show that I wasn't just shooting my mouth off.
Tina Peters.
Enter Tina Peters.
Yeah, that's right.
And that is revealed by one of her attorneys before the judge. Now, the jury was out. This was just arguments that they were making before the judge during the trial as it was going on. They spent like an hour detour to throw everything up against the wall to see what could stick as far as election conspiracy arguments. And the attorney, Dan Hartman, at the time, he's from Michigan, he literally said that this was about getting evidence for Mike Lindell's defense. And then John Case, in closing arguments, Colorado-based attorney for Tina Peters and previously for former Albert clerk Dallas Schroeder, he gets up and he literally says, thank God she did it, because otherwise we wouldn't really know what happened.
And you don't.
This was, even their defense was about trying to say
that's why
she had brought something about.
Yeah, and I know that early on they had with Mike Lindell's money, they hired, and I say this all the time with respect, if I was in a crack, I'd be on the phone to Harvey. Harvey Steinberg is, he is one of the top three. If you're in a jam, look at any time a professional athlete gets in a jam, who do they call? Harvey. And so, as I was told from a good source, Harvey was on the job until Lindell's money ran out. And then, no. So, again.
My understanding in part was that could have been the case, but more that Peters wanted because remember, Peters did end up maybe not having as much to afford Harvey Steinberg throughout all of this, but she was able to afford her legal defense.
Yeah, Lindell.
But Lindell, it seems to me, Peter, that Lindell's people specifically wanted a case that would never admit into anything that she was would they wanted to use this to prove something that was unprovable, and Harvey Steinberg wouldn't do that. He would have wanted to put up an actual criminal defense, whereas Tina Peters was clearly looking for something that was different than that, which is strange for a defendant.
Well, Peters, did she not go on a private jet to one of those cybersecurity things that pretty soon they were like the boy who cried wolf? Pretty soon,
this is what I was going to say, Peter. Earlier I mentioned Michael Administer, and I had forgotten that I was originally going to point out that Administer, during his sentencing arguments, said we don't believe she's a flight risk, and then he acknowledged, the prosecution might have something different to say about that. Yes, they would, because she went on multiple private jets to get out to South Dakota, to get down to Texas, as I believe Texas was included, and to get back to Colorado. Multiple times went on private jets. There are invoices showing that after the fact, after she was sort of caught with all this, that she, had to reimburse. And so there were invoices showing reimbursement. I've never seen anybody more of a flight risk than this in anything I've covered in Colorado.
Charlie Lucky, Luciano, and Tina Peters, the runners. James, you've done outstanding work with this. You really have. And, this is one of those black check marks against talk radio in Denver, and it's and actually syndicated across the boards. And this woman is by no means a hero, by no means.
Well, that leads me to want to stress something I think is important for this audience on KNUS, Peter. And that is that this was a Republican district attorney, not Jenna Griswold, who prosecuted this case. And I got a chance to sit down for about half an hour with Dan Rubenstein after the trial on Thursday, or rather after the sentencing on Thursday. And I want to read a quote to you that I think is important for Republicans to hear. I always saw my party as the party that was about law and order. And to have one of our fellow Republican elected officials just so blatantly talk about how she's the elected official and she alone gets to decide things. That's not how our Constitution works. That's not how our laws work. This is all about checks and balances, and it's all about making sure that nobody has absolute power.
In the Watergate,
he's right.
in the Watergate tapes, there's an amazing moment where it's John Mitchell, who was then the head of CREEP, the Committee to Reelect, and Richard Nixon, and they're on the tapes, and they need hush money. They need hush money up and down the line. God knows how many people they need to pay off. So Nixon says to John Mitchell about the money. He said, "Could we do it?" And John Mitchell, who ended up in going to prison anyhow, John Mitchell said, "We could do it, but it would be wrong." And that's that little blur. I mean, I've read the Nixon stuff. That little moment with Nixon is always we could do it, but it would be wrong. Well, they went ahead and did it, and that was when they were paying off, the plumbers and everybody. So, and they were Republicans, and that's what graded Barry Goldwater, and it graded, all those guys, and said, "Nah, you can't do this." James, I'm proud of you, man. You've come a long, long way in the last 10 years, and take a bow. You've done good stuff. You be careful.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope folks will watch out for my column tomorrow. Tina Peters deserves what she got, laying it all out in the Denver Gazette, denvergazette.com.
We'll talk. Thanks. All right, everybody. Also coming up later is Dick's going to talk about it as well. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. Stay right here. Unaware of it, I dress for success. Old fight shirt on. We're on the tube, guys, and on Rumble. Good morning. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station on a Saturday. 88 the high. It's going to be some wind. 80 Sunday, and on Monday, 83 degrees. Coming up from Regret to Rape. This young man was an athlete, and the reality says the subtitle, Some Women Do Lie About Being Raped. Danny Kaplis' law firm. And Dan, we go back for so many years and work together, and then some things happen in my family, and we called Danny, and the rest is great history. Now, the Kaplis firm, Danny, who shares your values, and you choose to represent you in an injury case, says a lot about you and everybody involved in the case. Danny's the son of a police officer. We've talked about his life. He's believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Also believed to have won the largest truck crash case verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law, the official law firm of the Nuggets now and the Avs. And Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on percentage fee basis, so he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need the man, if you need Dan's help, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplislaw.com. It is CAPLIS.com. I got a text on Buddy Holly's. We were talking about his motorcycle. Good morning, Peter. This is from a friend of mine, another motorcyclist. I think Buddy Holly's motorcycle was an aerial cyclone. I do too. And we're talking about the story of when Buddy Holly and the Bopper and Richie Valens die on the airplane, and how Waylon Jennings gave up his seat. It's been legendary stuff they write about. And he took the bus, and of course the airplane, Miss America Pie, goes down and becomes all of this. And what this really comes from, I'm watching my time here, is last week we talked about John Lennon's classic Imagine, which is really Karl Marx. And so I want to punch that again. So during the week, I'm out riding a motorcycle, and it came on. This is what Don Mclean, Miss America Pie, said about John Lennon reading Marx, and that's what Imagine is. It's the manifesto. It's not Das Kapital, it's the manifesto. Having said all of those things, let's see, there was something else I wanted to add to it, but it'll come up. Coming up, and I met this young man, he's a friend of Charles Johnson's, from Regret to Rape, and both Adam and I read the book, and it is powerful stuff, and we'll see what happens, and then we're going to have then coming up will be Dick Wadhams, and then we'll do lots of open lines this morning. So having said all those things, beautiful day, 88 will be the high with wind, 80 Sunday, Monday, 83 degrees. We ready? Want to pull the pin? We'll come back. Hang on, everyone. 710 KNUS on a Saturday morning. when you play the open and the guy smiles because he knows it's Bret Hart and he knows it's Ric Flair, you got a radio show. It's Saturday morning, everyone, October 5, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. Again, 88 to high today and windy a little bit. Two guys riding motorcycles. 80 on Sunday, 83 on Monday. Again, now we stream on YouTube and Rumble and the Dan Caplis hotline, and things are changing quick. So people need to know. In the meantime, I'm trying to think where I met you, and you came, and we both have a mutual friend in Charles Johnson, CJ, and you go back to CU with Charles, and I was at KOA when I met Charles, and so we have that friendship that goes through all of it, and there's not a better guy in the world.
CJ is awesome.
He really is.
He's only like a year and a half older than me, but he's like a big brother. His maturity and his vision.
Yeah, he's talked to me.
Yeah. He calls you Uncle Pete.
Yeah, I've been Uncle Pete to a lot of those guys.
Yeah,
there's a group, and they call themselves Sons of Peter Boyles, and they're a bunch of guys in radio that were, they're interns and board ops, and I don't know how many of those guys I raised, but I met Charles in the newsroom at KOA.
Okay.
And he was getting into business. And so I did critiques of his work, and we'd sit and talk about it. Not the brutal management critiques, but just, and he was working with Dave, but he knew Dave. And I don't know who else was on the job at the time, but Dave Logan.
Absolutely.
Who
the legend.
He and Charles got it. And they're like the number one high school team in the state now, are they not? Cherry Creek. I think Creek is. Who will nod? Who knows that Creek's number one? I think they are. So there's the legend, Dave and CJ.
I can't imagine being a high school player going up against his team. It's just got to be so intimidating.
But they're 4-1, I think, and they're traveling now, and I think they went to Texas, and they might have got dumped, but not often. Not often. I mean, Dave Logan he's one of my favorite people in the world. I stories about Dave Logan, but he played football with the guy who becomes Van Vader, the wrestler, Leon White. And he remember he wore that big hat and it would smoke coming in the ring and everything. They loved him in Japan. He's the bad guy, Gene, everything. Mm-hmm. And so I used to work in the business a little bit. So I was with Leon, and we were talking about Dave. And he said, Dave Logan is the toughest fill in the blank I've ever met. So when Leon,
he's so humble too.
Well, when Leon passes away,
get that guy, man.
And we break kayfabe, when Dave did this show with me to talk about Leon, who they called Van Vader, and what Leon said about Dave said about Leon. He said if he was going to get in a fight, he wanted Leon with him. Leon said, if it gets into, I want Dave with me. So I said, well, okay,
bring him.
How old are you now?
53.
Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Park Hill, and worked at the Kentucky Fried Chicken right there on Colorado Boulevard, and then the Checkers.
Checkers.
Checkers Auto Parts.
Checkers Auto Parts.
Yep, I'm a Park Hill guy, and Park Hill used to be African American community back in the day, and it's really evolved. And my dad bought his home for it. Hello, Dad, by the way, I love you. He encourages me a lot, and so I appreciate it. He bought his home in Park Hill for $34,000. And now,
what year?
Oh, my 75.
There, I was just at a get together in Pittsburgh, and I go by my father's house, and they put siding on it, and they put a porch on it. I'll show you the picture at the break. And as I said to my brother, I said, "What did the old man pay for that house?" $12,000. But it was in like 1950, blah blah blah. But he paid $12,000. But you would think that they had bought the Taj Mahal, but that was his house. It was $12,000, and
I feel sorry for college students right now, because one generation from my dad buying a brick home, Park Hill, great neighborhood, city parks right there.
What's it worth today?
Close to 6.
Sure.
Easy.
Yeah, sure.
It's insane what's going on around there. That's one generation.
Yes.
inflation's inflation, but
it might be coming the other way right now, though. I mean, it's housing prices are dropping, and prime rate's going to drop. I mean, everything comes in swings and stages, and so
even if it does drop $100,000, how is a college student still live?
You can't.
How do you mark up from 34 to
you don't? You don't.
6.5?
They knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it's incredible. CJ, what's up, brother? He's a great inspiration, and I just wanted to tell you how I met him. I wanted to pledge Omega Psi Phi, the fraternity, beautiful, founded in Howard University, and so I was speaking to this lady on campus, and she says, "Okay, well, he's a Q. If you want to be one."
Charles was.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Go up and meet him. And so I just walked up to him, and he's the most friendly person. You know, he's a star quarterback.
Absolutely.
He's the big man on campus, and he was just so humble. And
he was the man.
He took me under his wing, and I'm grateful.
He's one of a kind.
He is.
So now you were an athlete in high school, but now you go to school, and what happens? You go to CU, start CU.
I went to CU, and
what was your major?
Business.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I went up there in 1989, and just for the athletic thing, I didn't play football, didn't play basketball. I tried to walk on the basketball team, and because I knew one of the coaches from used to be Skyland, now it's Hiawatha Rec Center, there in Park Hill. And he said, "Come on up to CU, and we'll try you out. You know, you're all city." And so I didn't make it, but I got to play around with some of the guys up there, so it was a great experience. So I'm just a freshman, and my brother was up there, so he really cut the way for me. I had friends. I had went to some of the parties. I knew my way around campus. So thank you, Tunde, for cutting the path for me. I found a wonderful girlfriend in 1989, and I was just living the college dream. So a year goes by, and 1999 or 1990 rolls around, and that's when I had a roommate, and I was in the dormitories on campus, Baker Hall, and I'll use his first name,
please.
Dietrich. It was Friday night. Dietrich was at a party, and he met a woman at a sorority party, and they hit it off apparently. So they come back to the dormitory. I'm sitting there on my bed studying. These dorms are short and small, they're like closets and stuff. So he's like, "Yeah, I met her at a sorority party. Can she come in?" And she came on in, and we were just tossing around the football, shooting the breeze and stuff like that. He says, I think I'm going to get some action here. So he leaves with her. They go to Taco Bell, get some food.
Yeah.
They go to 7-Eleven, buy condoms. Come back to the door.
Something's up.
I mean, talk about getting consent. She's in their store getting the condoms. So they come back to the dormitory, and I'm interested,
How old were you then?
19.
That's all you think about.
You think about scoring, right? Oh. She was 19 as well, just for the record.
Yeah.
And we messed around a little bit. My girlfriend came to the door.
Yeah, one of the things that's striking in the book is you have a woman you really love.
I still love her.
Yeah.
She's an amazing woman.
Yeah.
And I really messed up that one.
Yep.
So she comes to the door. The girl who's in the room, I'm not going to use her name.
Oh.
She knew Kristen because they used to work together. So she's like, "Yeah." Once Kristen leaves, Dietrich says I wasn't there. She says, "You should go after her." I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely right. I'm out of here." So I get my bags. I go see her, tell her I was at the library. A lie. I put myself in a bad situation, but there was no sexual assault. There was no date rape. 7 months later, I apply for a resident advisor position, to oversee other students. Plus, you get free room and board.
Sure, there it is.
Score.
Yeah, there it is.
Get me out of the kitchen, man.
Yeah.
Those dishes. So I passed the test. I go through the interviews. I get the job. The alleged victim does not get the job. She tried. And I think there was some animosity. And
did you do follow up with her after that one night stand?
No, but fast forward, after I was convicted in trial, she drove from Boulder to Denver and spoke to the pre-sentence investigator and said she didn't want me to go to jail.
Man.
Yeah. She also met with my mom at some women's retreat, and they had a conversation.
I'll bet. I'll bet they did.
It was, excuse me. It was more loving, but it could have went the other way because my mom was pissed.
Yeah.
But God bless her. I'd love to meet with her. I would love to sit down. It's been 34 years.
Do you know where she is and where she lives?
I hear she's in Colorado. She she has a good family.
Yeah.
And I would love to sit down with her and Dietrich, put it on video and really discuss.
Talk about it.
Yeah. And I think that would be so informative to young women going to college right now.
Something I just found out this morning, your book is From Regret to Rape. Yes. It's been spiked. That's what they call it.
It's spiked. I'm canceled. I like to say I'm the first person who was canceled in my memory. So I put out the book. I write it in jail. And I used to handwrite it and send it to my brother, and he'd type it up or have a friend type it up. And he really encouraged me to get this book done. But I shop it around to some people, and they're like, man, you kidding me? This is a hot topic. We don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So I said, I'm going to self-publish it because I need to get this off my chest. I need to talk. And so I wrote it. I wrote every word, and there's a couple errors in there. Sorry, but editors are expensive and stuff. I read it a bunch of times.
They are. I know that one. Yeah.
So I self-published it, and I put it out, and I got a feature in Westward magazine.
Yeah, sure. I remember
Patty Calhoun. She's awesome. She read the book. She said, "Okay, I'm gonna do a piece on you." And she says, "There's gonna be some things you don't like." I said, "Just bring it. I just want to get my story out." And then after I did the Westward, I got to meet with you. So I was on your show 20 some years ago.
And I thought about that. I said, I know that when I first met you, I said, I know this guy. Kumbe Ginnane was with us. The book is From Regret to Rape. The subtitle is, and there's a bunch of people, you can see them drinking which is important in this. The reality is some women do lie about being raped, and here is how it devastated my life.
Yes, it put me on a different trajectory. And I thought...
When did you know you were jacked up?
I knew I was jacked up when I lost at trial.
No. When did you first hear that she was going to press?
7 months after that night. She didn't go to the police, or she didn't cry out to any authorities or anything. It was when I got my RA position, which she applied for.
Did she do a rape kit or any of those things?
No. There was nothing like that. She admitted she had been drinking. I had not been drinking.
Okay.
I did drink, but I happened to be studying that night.
Okay.
And so I believe alcohol is a huge influence on false rape.
What was she drinking? Do you remember what her drink was?
Sorority party. Who knows what they put in that bowl?
Right. They used to have a name for that.
Graveyard. What do they call it?
Oh, I got 100 names for that, but that was like Purple Passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Grape and Grain.
I'm sure there's
Jungle
some Mad
Juice
Dog in there. Yeah.
Torpedo Juice. I mean,
So she was lit, but she was completely, coherent. She walked home that night.
Yeah.
Alcohol, hence the picture on the cover of the book, which is not available. And I'm not here to promote the book.
No, how can you?
I am here to promote my nonprofit organization.
Well, I know, but still.
But let me tell you, the book was healing to write.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it always is.
And my dad tells me write another one. He says
the aftermath.
The issue is still there, from regret to rape.
So does she spend the whole night, or does she get up and leave?
I had been gone, but they say she left late at night.
People call that the walk of shame. Huh?
Yeah. Get your clothes on, your hair's messy, and
you got to walk home.
Nobody could see me.
I've had my own. Where am I?
And here's a bit of good advice.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
My buddy said this, and I don't want to bring his name up again, but we both know him. He said, I tell my son, if you meet a woman, no means no. And yes means no.
Mm-hmm.
He says that first night, do not have casual sex. The propensity for a false allegation to come out after you know the woman, after you have rapport, after she feels comfortable, there's no shame involved. There's no making somebody jealous. There's all of these ulterior things. You figure out if she's mentally stable.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey, she says yes, you say no. And it's smart advice for men going to college.
Smart advice for men not going to college. It's like smart advice. And
it's just good advice.
No, it's like, again, because a lot of things are being, particularly why I think this book is important now, is because all of the stuff that's coming out now on big names like Jeffrey Epstein,
Matt Ariza,
Diddy.
Oh, well, Diddy. That's territory I have no idea about. He did some stuff, I believe. Yeah.
He's not coming out. He's the October surprise. Is Sean, and now they said they have videos of who's who, and they were all there and at the parties. I think this is away from what you're here for, but it's also part of what you're here for. They killed Jeffrey Epstein. I really believe that.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are worried, and I'm sure Diddy's worried that they're going to take him
Diddy,
out.
He's in the same, he's in the sister detention center.
Did you hear he said he wanted to talk?
Yes, he did.
And then 100 more allegations come out after he says
he says that? Phone started ringing. And people were selling their houses. I mean, it's like they're getting ready to go. But I think Diddy holds, if it is, and that stuff with I got to get a life, but Justin Bieber of all people, and Bieber's like this little kid. Did you see those pictures? And Diddy's got his arm around the kid, and
Bieber's been victimized more than once, I believe, by Diddy, but also by a false rape allegation. Did you know about that?
No.
Yeah, some young woman said that Bieber date raped her. And then he was able to prove that he wasn't even physically there at the time. Yeah. So he was going to put a $20 million lawsuit on her. He dropped it 2 years ago, probably because he doesn't want, to keep recycling that through the press. But Bieber, man, he's been dual victimized.
If you go back to Bill Clinton and Juanita Broderick and all those women that talked about Bill Clinton, everybody said, believe the woman. And I did an interview, two interviews with Juanita Broderick. There's no doubt in my mind listening to her talk about Bill Clinton. But having said those things, then comes Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there's guys in between, but Epstein, or even before that, who's the Miramar Pictures guy? Come on. Who? Weinstein, yeah. And Weinstein, and then Roger Ailes, Bill O'Reilly. I was thinking of driving down here. Who in the news, who gets it, and now Sean, now Diddy.
Those guys have power. They have power to shape careers, and it's got to be intoxicating to know you can make somebody or break somebody. And
Roger Ailes knew it. I mean,
there's 15 more people in the hall waiting to meet you. So I mean, talent's talent after a while. So who are you going to pick? Somebody that you could take advantage of.
True story before we pause. We were at the convention for Donald Trump in Cleveland. Chuck Bonnewell, myself, and Mark Crowley. And I had my back turned. And for many, many times, Chuck said to me, we watched them perp walk Roger Ailes. They walked him out of the convention. And I didn't see him, and I'm reading a book about Ailes and everything, bigger than hell. When the people who ran Fox put it together that he was actually doing those things, they walked him out. And that was it for him. They paid him tremendous amounts of money to go away. But I think when somebody takes that from you and you're now known as, where do you go? What do you do? And that was part of what happened to you. You get a jacket.
Let me tell you, having a jacket is so hard to live life with. And every employer You have to freaking go through it. You have to go through it, and it's embarrassing, and it's also not true. So how do you deal with that? Matt Ariza, who was the punter for the Buffalo Bills, he got an allegation, kicked off the team, lost 2 years of salary, and now he's with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's killing it. The story, he's the punt god. Yeah. So the story was completely false. He lost 2 years of NFL career salary, and his name was just tarnished. And is she in jail?
No.
Damn no.
No. Ronald Reagan had a labor secretary by the name of Ray Donovan, an Irishman, and I think he was out of Jersey. And they started up on him being Mob Connect. There was a mob connection and kept it going. And it all fell apart. It wasn't true. Ray Donovan stands there and says, okay, where do I go to get my reputation back? That was a powerful moment. Ray Donovan said, where do I go now?
So you can't pull that reputation off the shelf and purchase a new one.
Kumbe, what do? How do you go get, if everything you're saying is true, how do you go get your reputation back?
Well, you fight and you become bold, like Elon Musk said. Do something bold. And I was encouraged by my daughter, 13-year-old, beautiful young lady, and so proud of her. She encouraged me. She said, Dad, you got to go for it. You've been a truck driver all your life, and you're unhappy just living with your own thoughts in that truck. Sure. You got to live. I'm 53. I'm ready to live. I'm ready to take risks, and I'm ready to help young men who are jammed up.
Coming out and talking is, they always said it's, alcoholism is a disease of lies and secrets. And
let me tell you, one of your greatest accomplishments in an interview with you, somebody asked you, what of all the things you achieved, what's your greatest accomplishment? Do you remember what you said?
Just getting sober.
Yeah, man.
I say that all the time.
You've helped me. You've helped so many people. So thank you.
Yeah. Sit still. We'll open up the phone lines. He said he'll take calls. 303-696-1971. The book is entitled From Regret to Rape. The reality is some women do lie about being raped. Here is how it devastated my life. How many people believe that the October surprise is Diddy, man? I tell you what, I wanted to talk about that. So lines are open. I'm Peter Boyles. Stay right here. The 710 KNUS we are. You can see us now on Rumble and on YouTube, and I'll get all of that out. This is 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Yeti Roadie 60-quart wheeled cooler valued at $450.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Here we go. It's a Saturday morning, everyone. It is the October 5 edition, 710 KNUS. We are the voice of the people, 303-696-1971. Lines are wide open with a wonderful guest sitting in studio. We'll get right back to it. But it's David Ellis time. David, I saw David to do Tuesday or Wednesday. You've heard me talking about taking valuables to David's Jewelers, and to get fortunes in cash and to secure an appraisal from David for all the valuables you have tucked away in your home. It's still true. And I'll share the other reasons to see David just in case you don't have a Rolex or rare coins or a silver tea set. See David Ellis for all of your most meaningful gift-giving occasions. David Ellis Jewelers have just been the right item for just the right price for special people, and that means the most. You know, holiday gift-giving time is straight ahead. Think about David. Trusted jeweler's been buying precious metals, antiques in Colorado for decades. Dazzling cases filled with hundreds of new and used pieces for your loved ones. They will treasure them. Visit David Ellis Jewelers. See for yourself. Look for the black awning on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. Explore DavidEllisJewelry.com. He's my friend. Call him on the phone, 303-322-8779, 303-322-8779. He's there now. They're 6 days a week, 3rd and Clayton in Cherry Creek. Our guest is, you never know, talk radio, no man, it's master. So I meet this young man, and everybody's a young man to me, and they mentioned CJ, and we talked before, but I thought, what a powerful moment to have him on the show, given what's going on in the world today. But it's entitled From Regret to Rape, and you can't buy the book. Kumbe's book has been. How did they stop you from this book? I
wanted to do a reprint. I called the publisher and I said, "Hey, this book's taken off. It's got some good reviews. People want it." And the publisher said, "I don't think you're going to be able to reprint that." And so I spoke to the manager, and they said, "Yeah, you've been receiving a lot of heat from feminist organizations saying, that topic, it's canceled. Shut that down. Don't let it out. Don't talk about it." And they caved, because who am I?
Oh, no,
I'm just a self-published author with no name, and powerful feminist organizations behind powerful names can shut you. They got me kicked off of a commercial. I did a national commercial when I was doing a little modeling, and it was a dating show, and I was on the promo every day, 5 days a week, and they shut that down. And my agent called me and said, we have to take you off because we're catching heat. I mean,
no, that's the kind of thing that's gone on. And I've always said what's happened when you go woke. And I just wrote a column about Harley Davidson, which is by the way. He's a motorcyclist, another riding sickles.
That's man. Right, riding sickles.
Guys ride sickles.
Came in on the sickle park right next to you.
They were ready to go.
Oh, and it's a beautiful day.
Go with me. I'm going to Devil's Head when this is over. I'll take it with me. I love it.
All gas, baby.
I'll go take you with me.
We could split lanes together.
I've been watching these guys. I was on 25 yesterday, and these young kids on sport bikes.
And they're narrow. Those bikes are more narrow than ours because we have the bags and stuff, but they can go right between those lanes at high speed and
light them up,
dip between the mirrors.
Have you ever seen, only one time in my life, when MotoGP comes, the Grand Prix of motorcycling, when the factory teams come, and I saw them in Daytona. And the wall in Daytona, this is away from what we're talking about, but you can't walk up that wall. You just can't do it. The wall's so.
I had a buddy who was good ugh, who we used to street race with. He actually rode that track. He said, I couldn't walk because the embankment is so
steep. You can't
carry that speed through.
And they ride you around in a golf cart, and then when it's just on the turns, and it levels out, and then it comes back on the turns again. And the guy stops the golf cart and says, "Anybody want to try and walk the wall?" That's like a wall in this room. I mean, so here they come.
And they're dragging their knee through that turn.
Better yet, they're 3 abreast. And
hold your line.
And they're 3 abreast. I'll bet they're doing $170 coming down off of that wall. And I think to myself, well, those guys are motorcycle riders. And then there's a guy here, Mark Miller, that's in Jefferson County, that teaches motorcycling. And a very kind of prominent Denver guy called me last night. he just bought his daughter a 400 Kawasaki, and he wants to put her in bike school. So I had to.
My daughter wants to ride. Don't listen. Don't listen.
No, please. And so, this is a good friend, and I called a woman that I know that runs all the Harley schools, and we'll get her in a school. But
please get her in a school.
Oh, get her. Oh, yeah.
Especially here in Colorado.
Did you ever go to a school?
I did.
Did you?
I took race school because I did some local racing, the MRA racing.
Sure.
Second Creek.
Right. With Ricky Orlando?
Stapleton.
With Ricky or?
I don't know who.
Okay.
I was in my 20s, but I rode with some buddies, and we all got together. Actually, one of my buddies is a promoter of those Daytona races now. Cameron Gray. What's up, buddy?
Another name. Yeah.
Yeah, he's bad. So we took the classes, and we took all of our lights off and everything. And
man,
you only grab front brake. You don't even hit the back brakes because you'll smoke everybody, right? My man,
they took me down and the same thing. And I got on leathers and I put the helmet on. I'm going out on the track. And I said, this thing doesn't have any rear view mirrors.
Nothing.
And they looked at me and said, why you need a rear view?
You going forwards, baby.
Because
hit that wheelie.
There is no rear view mirrors on those bikes. And I'm so used to looking in the mirror, who's back there, who's behind me. And I thought, he said, you just worry about who's in front of you.
That's right. And don't hit that back brake because you just sent a plume of that black smoke.
Yeah. And it's good to hear you ride. Go with me.
Oh, man, I love it.
I'm going to Devil's Head. We'll go down and see the boys. But
please, it'd be an honor.
No, we'll go. Let's just consider done. So when they spiked the book, that was it.
Yeah, I called them. I was pissed. And I said, well, what's up? And they told me the heat they were catching. And I said, well, what are my options? And I said, who are you? That's a good point.
Nickels and dimes.
That's a good point. So, my dream is to republish that book and get it retweaked and put in some modern people like Trevor Bauer, the Cy Young baseball player. He's kicked out of the league. He's been playing in Japan and then Mexico. He just won the big thing in Mexico. He still brings the heat. I'd love to meet you, Trevor. Love you to be on the board of directors for my nonprofit, False Rape Shield. And we're just trying to help people who get jammed up pre-conviction. And that's the niche that I'm really focusing on because the Innocence Project and all these people go post-conviction after you're in jail for 12 years. Oh, there's some DNA that we can retest. Oh, there's some evidence that we got to get you before you're convicted, before your life is burned.
Where'd you do the time?
I did the tour of Colorado.
Did you?
DRDC, then sent down to Canyon, went up to Lyman and got sent out to Kit Carson, close to Kansas, saw some corn every morning, saw a little bunny visit me in the window.
It's like
I wrote about that in the book.
No, it's like this cherry boy from Park Hill. And then and were you shocked when you got sentenced?
I was shocked because I believed, the truth would come out. Bringing up my girlfriend at the time one more time, that they offered me a misdemeanor plea bargain. And I remember sitting in the car on campus with her and I said, misdemeanor, that'll go away in a few years. And she didn't tell me what to do, but she encouraged me. She says, if you say you're guilty, people are going to believe you're guilty.
Sure.
Take it to trial. I said, yeah, I'm going to take this to trial.
Great famous last words.
What the hell happened in trial?
I had
a half-day defense, man. No expert witnesses, no character testimony. I just went up there with
what was the offer pre-trial? What was the offer if you copped?
The misdemeanor was sexual, whatever sexual assault is for a misdemeanor, inappropriate touching or something.
You'd have never done time.
Hell no. They probably would have dropped that misdemeanor after a few years, on probation or whatever. But it was principle, man. It was like I had great dreams for my future, and I didn't want to admit to something I didn't do.
Did you get a court appointed, or did you have you hired your own?
I hired my own. It was a buddy of the family.
Right.
God bless him. He used to be a good attorney, but he was going through a divorce at the time. He was living in his office because he couldn't go home. And he was also doing a little, drugs, which he admitted to me. And we didn't have money to pay for all of these expert witnesses that can talk about why women lie. And there are reasons. And I gave you something that gives 13 good reasons about why women lie. Yeah. And there's a wide variety, but there's multiple reasons why women lie. And there's so many feminist organizations that receive money from the Violence Against Women's Act to shut it down.
Yeah, that was always
shut that down.
Believe the woman, believe the woman, believe the woman, until it came to Bill Clinton.
Brian Banks, they did a movie about him. Brian Banks, a black man who's a star athlete in California, football player. Yeah. This girl in high school lied about him raping her. He did many years in prison. The Innocence Project got him out. They did a movie about him. He tried to go pro and
didn't want him.
He was in his late 20s, and being a linebacker, it's tough to have your legs. Yeah, too old. But I think he did make the team for preseason. But God bless him. He's an inspiration to me, Brian Banks. And I'd love to meet you also, because you have a story that is not told.
All right. You can see the lines are lit up.
Here we
Adam,
go.
Adam, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a break and we'll come back and take the calls. The book is entitled From Regret to Rape.
Which is not available.
No, which is not available. Why are we doing this?
Because of my nonprofit, False Rape Shield, falserapeshield.org. I have been given the blessing to help young men pre-conviction, and we're going to offer legal fees assistance to get them that expert witness, to get them that DNA.
Total time, how much did you do?
I did 3.5. Whew.
Talk about prison after this. We'll take the calls. We have jammed up, everyone. 710 KNUS Denver's Talk Station with Peter Boyles, 88 to high, windy. 80 Sunday and Monday, it's 83 degrees. 710 KNUS, I'm Peter Boyles. This is Denver's Talk Station.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Yeti Roadie 60-quart wheeled cooler valued at $450.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Here we go. Saturday morning, 5 October 2024, and a beautiful fall day and motorcycle weather when this is over, and 88 and windy, and 80 Sunday and Monday, 83 degrees. Just a wonderful guest in studio. Phone number is 303-696-1971. Well, I'll turn somebody's phone on. We'll go over here. This is James. James, you're on the radio show Saturday. Good morning, and thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Quite the topic that you have this morning. I'm wondering, and I probably believe that this lady in question is listening to this talk show today, because I'm assuming she knows he's on here telling his story. And the sad thing, or it could be a good thing, is she could come out now as an adult and an older person, not a young kid, and tell the truth. And this would be not only good for her, but your guest. And, nobody's going to fault her for being young and scared and whatever at the time. But for her to continue to hang on to this and not go public and help this guy really get through what he's going through, I mean, it's not good.
I would hug her. I would embrace her. It would be positive. It would be healing for her and for me and my family. And I think it would be educational for the public. It is open invitation, and I have love for you.
Yeah, I'm on the other end of that realm. I grew up in Park Hill. I'm 61. I was a career criminal and changed my life 16 years ago.
Right on.
And the last court date I had, I went in and I told the judge, I'm guilty. And I was. And my life is super good. But I do believe there's a chance for this lady and you to get together, go public, forget the women's organizations. It's about the truth. And it would really do you and her and the whole community.
James, it's Peter. It rests. I mean, we rightfully so, front page, lead story, are all of these stories about abusive men. We're talking about Epstein. We're talking about
Weinstein. Masculinity.
Yeah. I mean, Trump's alleged to do things, and Clinton did do things, and
women don't lie.
Women don't lie. You got to believe. And so it's, I don't want to say it's contrary, but it's contradictory to mainstream thought. And there was the day where the judge would tell the woman you had a short skirt on, so you had that coming. So we live in this world of
pendulum swings.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So I don't know, James. When you were doing crime? What was your principle?
I was a drug addict, robberies, burglaries, selling drugs. I grew up in Park Hill, in the late 80s. Went to East High School, and I was a career criminal till I was 46. And now my life is absolutely, really, really good.
What was your?
It's because of my honesty.
Yeah, sure. What was your drug of choice?
Cocaine, meth, heroin,
there you go.
Alcohol, everything to escape the guy in the mirror.
Yeah. You take care of yourself. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks, God bless. Thank you. That was a good one. We go to Nick. Nick, you're on the show. Good morning. It's Saturday.
Thank you for taking my call. I just want to tap into what you were saying. Unfortunately, society goes from one extreme to the other. As you mentioned, there was a time when it was all the woman's fault and nobody would even listen to her. And now it's swung over to the other side. Obviously, the pendulum should be, in an ideal society, right down the middle. And the advice that your guest has said, I think, is very, very good. Do not sleep with a woman that you've just met right off the bat, because it ends up being your word against their word if it gets to that point, and just ugly things happen.
It's high risk when emotions are involved. In my opinion, women are more emotional than men. And so
yes, they are.
Yeah, we're thinking more of a sexual activity, and they're thinking, how is this going to affect me? How is this going to make me look? How does this make me feel? And all of these things, they weigh, and it can skewer a regrettable situation into, oh, I'm a victim. And especially when these powerful feminist organizations tell you, oh yeah, you're a victim.
You remember
that
that
statistic?
You guys remember the story at CU? And I thought about this. So the kids who were being recruited to play ball, and they went to those parties, and I remember Capitals was involved in this, and they had, allegedly there were women that came to them and had sex with them during all this recruitment stuff. And it ended a lot of their, the best of my knowledge, my memory, is that I don't, maybe, Caller, do you remember that story, Nick? Do you remember when, and I remember Danny doing that story, we were working together, but, and I don't know, I won't say I know the outcome because I don't, but again, recently, I mean, how many victims do you think Harvey Weinstein had? How many victims does Diddy have? How many victims does Roger Ailes have? How many victims, I mean, Trump stood trial for something they claimed on him.
Those guys are fools, and they're bad for the innocent man, because they are making rape swing back to the believe all women. And those guys are dirty, and I hope they go down. But that's probably the whole Weinstein and
he's not good.
Indeed. The Violence Against Women's Act was at $500 million in 2022. It is up to now a full billion 2024. And it's because of idiots like Weinstein and Diddy and people who have high profiles who are just letting money just flood into these feminist organizations, which end up hurting innocent men.
I got a woman on the line. I'm going to thank Nick. We go to, first I saw your name, Sarah. Hi, thanks. Welcome to the show.
Hi, just listening to the caller. How did he come to this point of view where he's loving this woman who accused him falsely? I'm very curious about that. That's one of my questions.
Sure. Let me repeat the question. How am I becoming loving towards this person who accused me? Is that correct?
How did you come to that viewpoint? Why is it that you do not hold animosity towards her?
Through the grace of God, forgiveness is so powerful. Walking around with bitterness or resentment is hurting me. And there's so many prolific people who say that in more eloquent ways. But I have to unburden myself from the anger or from, the man walking around with divorce bitterness or resentment. Whoever has harmed you, in your opinion, you have to release that, give forgiveness, and through love, you're going to find peace. That's how.
The only power that you have and I have and everyone had, the only power you have is forgiveness. You have no other powers. You have that. And you forgive people not for them. You forgive people for you.
That's right. How you react to a situation is going to affect how you feel.
Get up in the morning and pick that stuff up like Samsonite in both hands and walk with it. It gets pretty heavy.
David Goggins, he tells you, man, stay hard. Get out there and run. I hit the gym this morning.
Both of us. But
good for you.
But Sarah, that question may be the best question of the morning. Really appreciate it. What do you think when you hear these stories? As a woman, what do you think?
I have empathy for this gentleman that he was wrongly accused, but I've been a victim of physical abuse by my brother.
Yeah.
And I took him to court when I was 25, and we got in front of the judge, and my brother lied, and he said he never laid a hand on me. And he just out and out lied, and he had no repercussions for beating me up. He did that from the time I was small until the time I was 25.
Wow.
And so for all the, it would be great if people went in court and said, yeah, I did it. I'm guilty. But for all the women who lie, there are men who lie. It's like people saying I never raped her, like Harvey Weinstein, and all the others. They're always going to say I didn't do it.
Oh, of course.
She was coming on to me. She wanted it.
That's why there's defense attorneys. No, absolutely. Do you talk to your brother at all?
No, I'm afraid of him.
Does he live here in Colorado with you? Does he live near you?
No, I moved very far away from him.
You're a brave woman. This is the call of the morning. Thank you.
You are a brave woman, and I'm sorry to hear that. And that's why doing this venture of mine, this nonprofit, makes it so much harder, because they're real victims, like this lady right here, Sarah, and it hurts. But there is a small percentage of men who are falsely accused, and that is what I'm angling to help, not to justify rape at all.
Sarah, thanks. Your wonderful call. Now, you do the time, you get out, and now you got to start to look for work and renew your life. And now then what?
Yeah, I took some college courses while I was in jail, and then I finished my degree from the University of Colorado when I got out. And this is a great story. Before background checks were so easy from a click of a mouse, some companies just didn't do background checks because it cost money or it took time. And if you had a good interview, they were going to bring you aboard. So I had a great corporate job, corporate car, I wore a suit. So I thought, this is in the past. But then layoffs came, the sales force was laid off, and I was thrown back into the environment, and background checks were becoming more and more easy. And I was just weeded out before I could even get the interview, and it became tough. And my life buddy from Little League football said, "Look, man, I know you got a fancy degree and all that, but what you need to do is get your CDL, commercial driver's license."
Drive.
He said, "Look at me, I'm making over $100K driving this truck, and if you can suck it up with your pride." Pride's out the door. I went and got my CDL. I've been driving a truck ever since.
I'm hip. So now what?
Now what is I'm going to take off with this nonprofit, and I'm going to help people who are falsely accused be able to afford investigative experts to get the DNA, to have somebody hitting the streets looking for video, which got the Hofstra University boys off.
I saw that Hofstra thing. Yeah,
those boys were done. They were already in jail 2 days, and they were going to get hung. Yeah, but one of them was smart enough to videotape this spontaneous sexual incident in a men's bathroom, which is despicable. But they're college age and horny, and she showed great participation, and she consented. And so the detectives saw that. They confronted her with the video, and she recanted the whole lie. Without that video, those boys were gone. So my mission through False Rape Shield is to help people before they get convicted, before they go away, and then they're trying to write the Innocence Project 12 years later.
I was really hesitant about doing this show, and I'm so glad I did. I mean, seriously, you never know. And the calls were great, and the response is great, and you're terrific. Here's a book you can't get.
But you can visit my nonprofit.
Do the website real quick.
falserapeshield.org.
One more time.
falserapeshield.org. And you can contact me, falserapeshield@icloud.com.
And I will hold on to this From Regret to Rape. Usually I give paperbacks away, and hey, you want to read this?
Well, that's your second copy, because 20 years ago.
I don't have too many moves. A divorce,
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor.
Well, we're going to turn around with Dick and come back with Dick. But then, if you want to ride this afternoon,
absolutely,
I'm in. Sit still.
Wheelies.
Dick's on at noon. We go back into open lines. 303-696-1971. We talked about a lot of things, and so it's open lines. We'll go it again. 710 KNUS, 88 and windy, and then 80 Sunday, 83 on Monday. Stay right here. Dick Wadhams, more about Tina Peters at noon. So we got a couple hours to go. Let's rock and roll. 710 KNUS. Morning, everybody, on a Saturday. It's an open line segment, 710 KNUS. We're Denver's talk station, October the 5th, a Saturday, and the weather's beauty, 88 the high, and it is windy, but we're going to go ride motorcycles this afternoon, 80 on Sunday and 83 on Monday. The last guest, gentleman's last name and first name spelled Kumbe, his first name, last name Ginnane. So it's Kumbe, then Ginnane. And the book that you can't get is From Regret to Rape. A lot to talk about. 303-696-1971. I want to do one thing, and then we'll go back into the phones. Last Saturday here on the radio show, we were talking about Karl Marx and the intent of Marx and utopians and everything. And in the middle of it, I said, John Lennon did a song called Imagine. Well, Imagine's the manifesto. We've been through it. Imagine there's none of this or none of that, and there's no heaven, there's no hell, which is atheism. There's nothing to fight or die for because you're going to be taken care of, and it just goes on and on and on. Well, you would have thought I ran over somebody's dog. I mean, it was like the amount of fireback that came. I said, "Stop! It's reality. It's what he did." No, he didn't. Okay, so then I'm on the motorcycle, and Ronald Reagan said about thinking on horseback, like that's the best place in the world to think is you're on the back of a horse. I'm sure it's all true, but there's nothing like a motorcycle to just get in that Zen stuff. And it dawned on me about Don Mclean and Miss America Pie. And one of the great lines and I love the song, but he sings, when Lennon read a book on Marx. And we sang Dirges in the Dark and the rest of it. So when I came into work and I said, Adam, find that. And here's Don Mclean. And the Lenin he's talking about, it's not Vladimir. It's not Ilya. What is his real name? Leonovich, I think is his last name. So this is the late great. He's not the late great. He is talking about the late great John Lennon and Carl. We've talked about this earlier, but worth coming back because we're getting a lot of messages on it. Waylon Jennings was the bass player, I think, because Buddy Holly's Crickets, they had broken up. And I don't know if Waylon was in the house band or he was playing with Buddy. And it was cold, and somebody had the flu, and it was, so they flipped coins. And Waylon lost the flip and got off the airplane. And I think Buddy got on and went to his death. And from all the people that I've ever known that knew Waylon, or even stuff that was written about Waylon, that haunted Waylon Jennings. And the bike was indeed, and this is how smart these guys are that listen to this show, the bike was Buddy Holly's motorcycle. And it was an Ariel, they were British bikes, an Ariel Cyclone. And so I think as the story goes, and somebody knows a lot more will tell me the story, they come back, and I think they were in New York, and it was the Crickets and Buddy Holly. They were motorcycle geeks. So they all want to go buy bikes. And the bike dealers wouldn't sell them anything. They wanted to get Harleys, I thought, and they ended up getting British bikes. But Waylon apparently had that motorcycle until the day he died. And he kept it in the house. So there's that. But Lennon read a book by Marx. All right. Catch as catch can, open lines, talk radio, lines are jammed. Hey, Jack, you're up, man. Saturday, thanks.
Morning, Lamont.
Oh, boy.
You were talking about how a dollar's not worth anything anymore. I had some of these $20 gold pieces from 1902, 1903. They bring over $2,000.
Oh, sure, of course. That's
so
gold.
if you go by that, $1 in 1903 is $100 today.
But it's also they buy them because they're gold. I have a dear friend who has coins, and you'd be surprised. It's the gold. It's not necessarily the dollar.
Well, obviously it's the gold.
Yeah.
No, it's the only.
How much money did you make last week in gold?
I don't invest in gold. I invest in oil companies. I bought 19,000 shares of an oil company last week, and everybody yelled at me. They think I'm crazy. But real estate and oil companies are the only thing I invest in.
Buy dirt. What was the great line? They're not making any more.
Well, they can't print it.
Yeah. No, I can't make any more.
They can't print it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've got a lot of property that's worth a lot of money, but I don't. But at the rate it's going, as particularly if they put this Kamala Harris in, I don't think $1 is going to be worth. I don't think $100 bill is going to be worth 10 cents if she gets it.
Well, it's
gone.
It's
gone.
It's a showdown coming. It really is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's all. I mean, I'm talking to you again. You know, I've been talking to you forever.
Me and you.
We stay off of legal issues and politics. We do pretty good.
That's me and the world. All right. Thanks, Bubba.
All
Be
right.
safe. We go to Mary. Mary, good morning. You're on the show.
Hey, Peter, I'm grateful that you're back because you make radio. But we were friends, church friends of Bob Lee.
Oh, my.
And I was just wondering if you could tell some of his stories because he was a good man. He suffered a lot at the end. But if you could tell us some
My
stories.
mentor. He was
Your
my
mentor.
He was my mentor.
And how long you guys worked together?
Well, Bob was the morning news anchor on KOA, later to be replaced by Gus Merkus. So I was a traffic and recreation reporter for the AAA Auto Club, and I was working 7 days a week, and Bob would host a Saturday morning news block on KOA, and I would call up with something. This is Dan Hopkins's work, and it was called the Travel and Recreation Report, and I would have to help write them early in the morning about going here and going there, and the roads are this, and like the leaves are turning and everything. So Bob and Bob's sense of humor, Bob was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he was the rock and rebel, WJBK in Detroit. He knew, he knew, he and Berry Gordy were really good friends. And so he knew Stevie Wonder, he knew Smokey Robinson, he knew Martha Reeves, he knew everybody. And it wasn't like, somebody like me that met them once. I mean, Bob really knew them. And so it was absolutely brilliant. Before that, he had gone to New York, and I can tell the story now because everybody's no longer alive, but he got an agent, and he was in a play off Broadway, and he was a mimic. And Bob was working, believe it or not, in Puerto Rican radio in New York City, speaking Puerto Rican Spanish, and no one knew. He was Roberto. No one knew that he was this white kid from Detroit. He had been a combat sailor during the Korean War. And so he's off Broadway, he's on a play, he's getting good reviews, he's got an agent, and they're positioning for this job. And there's this new guy coming on television. His name is Johnny Carson. And when Bob was in his cups, he would lament this story. And so they're down, they want a sidekick for Carson. And it's between him and Ed McMahon. And his wife, Janie, got sick. And they returned to Detroit. And Bob was a great top 40 jock. I mean, he was as good as they come. He's funny, timing, everything that you wanted in a disc jockey. He was handsome. But there's something that got gutted on him. His dad was a race car driver. I mean, legendary life. And I spoke at his funeral, and it was knowing who he was at this one time of his life. I don't think there was 40 people at the funeral, and it's just sad, but he was and I knew his second wife. I mean, I knew everybody, and I loved him. He took me under his wing, and they taught me the good stuff and the bad stuff. They taught me, I mean, a real quick story. The late Lindsay English, and handsome Roger Thompson, and myself, and I was called Bob Pappy, and Pappy and I, and a guy named Bob Prangley ran the radio station. He wanted all of us to dress like country Western, the shirts and the boots and everything. So there was a place called Western Wardrobe. It's in Littleton Boulevard. The guy's name was John Nyland, and Bob used to call him Captain Western. Bob was the voice for all of his spots, and he loved the radio show. And so we went down, and they were there. I don't know if you understand trades, but I was just learning. So we're sitting there, and there's 4 or 5 of these guys, and they're trying on boots and hats, and I'm just sitting there having a cigarette, I think. And they looked at me and they said, "Hey, Peter, come on, come." I said, "I don't have any money," and they said, "Neither do we." They were, and but Bobby really was one of a kind. I mean, alcohol took his life.
Yeah,
like so many of those legendary great guys that and I who knows what would have happened, but
yeah. Well, the short story was we were in the bottom of Holy Ghost Church, and he sees my husband in look like a giant altar boy, and so Bob Lee goes over to him and says, "Father," and my husband says, "No, I'm not a father. I'm just a big altar boy."
Yeah, no, we all.
And then that struck up the conversation of he became our friend, but he
was great.
Yeah, you're lucky that you have somebody like him.
They taught me stuff for the first time we ever met. It's just so the Playboy Club used to be in the thing was in Warwick, and because the radio station I first worked in was called Cat Radio, and the Playboy Club was on the floor above it. So the Playboy view of the world was if you're in Denver radio or TV, you could drink in there for free and go to the shows. So the old man and we had never met, and we were working together, and he said, "Well, let's go see," and it was Soupy Sales. This is a true story. So I meet Bob, and we're off to see the Wizard. I think that's the night that solidified it. So we sat down between shows, and we're drinking with Soupy Sales. Soupy had been a disc jockey in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Soupy was over the moon. I mean, he was just so funny. And I asked him all the stories about, remember when I think it was New Year's morning, and Soupy's doing the show, and he pulls out a $10 or a $20 bill, and he holds it up to the camera, and he says, "I want you kids to sneak in Mom and Dad's room and get everything that looks like this and send it to Uncle Soupy." And they did. Kids sent tons of money to Soupy Sales, and they got. I think he got suspended for that one. And then he gave the producer the finger on the air. He said he took his little finger and said, "This is for the director, and this is for that's for the producer." And they would hide things in the closet on him. He just went on. They'd hide nude women in there, and he'd open up the door, and there'd be somebody in there. But he was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And so we met. I met all those guys.
I hope you're because I hear you're writing a book.
Well, trying.
But I hope you would put some of Bob Lee in, and then we'll buy a couple copies of it.
Well, what I'm doing is a novel, so it's you got to mask a lot of people.
Yeah.
And any Bob Lee story that you tell the truth about, you can't say Bob Lee's name. You gotta have some other guy, and I've changed a lot of names of a lot of people, but I think the old radio hands are going to go. They're going to know everybody in the book, but
yeah. Well, I hope so. I look forward to
we'll
reading.
See. We'll see because it's I didn't realize that I get to write a lot, but I didn't realize what a pain in the rear end writing a book is when Kumbe's here and he did a book, and I'm in awe of that. Yeah. Take care. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
303-696-1971. Good morning, everyone. It's a Saturday. For the first time, we came out of the box lines are full, and now we have open lines again. We also, you can talk about John Lennon. I'm getting text on that. We could do that. And somebody said we were talking about the vice presidential debate, and that raised a lot of ire. We're talking about, obviously, too, about what happened this week when it turns out Tina Peters is going to do 9 years. She'll not do 9 years, but that has upset everybody. No, don't. I mean, she's got it coming. I mean, you can't do what she did. You can't. And also, I mean, if you think how close these people came to overthrowing the Constitution to fit their own needs and the lies that were told. And look at Giuliani now. Did you see his daughter came out and said, Giuliani's just a wreck. But his daughter came out and blamed it on Trump. No, that's a tough one. All right, it's going to be 88 for a high today. It's time to take a turn around. 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station. Again, we're streaming on YouTube and Rumble. Lines are lighting up. Your calls right after this.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Yeti Roadie 60-quart wheeled cooler valued at $450.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Saturday, 5 October, 2024. We have two lines open. This is kind of rare for the morning show. 710 KNUS weather. It's going to be windy and 88 and 80. Sunday, Monday, it's 83 degrees. All's well in the world. Let's go to Frank. Hey, Frank, good morning. Thank you.
Hey, Pete, if you ever read James Patterson's autobiography?
No, but I just finished James Patterson's book on Tiger Woods.
So Patterson, about 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know whether it was in the middle of the COVID, wrote a book called James Patterson on James Patterson.
Oh, wow.
And you made that remark about how hard it was, but about a third of the way in, he tells about his writing style. And he writes in a style he calls colloquial, like just talking to someone. And his chapters are very short, and he tells in that chapter how he outlines extensively the books, and then he goes back and writes brief, short, little 2, 3, 4-page chapters about specific topics, and it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that have the skill to do it, and I don't pretend to, but a million years ago, and I got pictures with Stephen King, and I got to talk to Stephen King, who's one of my idols. And I said, how do you do it? And he said, every day I have set aside time. And he had a room that he was amazingly wealthy, but he would go into this room and he would force himself to write. Now, he might throw it away the next day, but he forced himself to write. Hemingway wrote in a bar,
Stephen King has a book called On Writing.
Yep.
And it tells about him. And he started he was so poor, he was sitting in a card table or something in the heating room of his house up in Maine or wherever, to keep from freezing. And he had 20 subjections of that book carry, and then they were rejected. And he did it, and he threw it in the trash can. His wife drug it out, said, let's try one more time. A month or two later, some publisher calls him. He said, Mr. King, would an advance of $200,000 be okay with you?
I've heard that story. And he was, again, it's a storyteller morning, but his producer is a guy named Mick Garris. And I've known Mick thousands of years off and on through the business. And Mick, the movie that they had done The Stand. Remember when they did The Stand for television? And I knew Mick, and that was Stephen King's Stand. So then they decided they're going to remake The Shining, if you remember that. And they came back to Colorado. And so I was doing mornings on KHOW, and I get a call from Mick. And I said, hey, how you doing, Irish? And we're talking, and he said, well, Stevens listens to your show in the morning. I said, true story. And I was just flabbergasted. And he said, and I said, ask him if he wants to do the show. I thought, why not, right? And he put his hand over you could hear him. And I said, how about this? He said, yeah, you do this. I said, don't you guys want to come to Denver? And he said, yeah. He said, Stephen and I will come to Denver tomorrow morning. And it was the first year the Rockies played at Coors Field. And KOA is a partner, and they have the broadcasting rights. So we did the radio show together, and then I took him around and introduced him to everybody, and we went to the ball game. And then he sat in the press box, and he sat with the on-air guys. And he really knew baseball. One of his passions was building Little League fields in Maine, truly does. And it was before he got hit with a car, everything that happened to him. So we're sitting there. And the book, The Shining, is really about a guy losing his sobriety. That's the sense of the book. And we had a long talk about drugs and alcohol. But the one thing about Stephen King that I thought was unique, and I think it comes back to the disease of alcoholism, is that never dies. It never goes away. And if you go back and you read Stephen King, we talked about it. He and I talked about it. I said, when I'm a kid going to the Frankenstein movie, Frankenstein burns up in the windmill, or Dracula gets the blade in his heart, or whatever it is that they kill these monsters. In The Thing, they electrocute the Thing. Stephen King stuff doesn't die. It's there.
Do you think, I've never seen anybody as prolific as King.
Oh.
Do you think if he couldn't write, do you think he would return to his drinking?
No, I would hope not. But it was beyond drinking. It was everything. He was like many of us. He was a Rexall. He was a Rexall Ranger.
in a way, it's a tortured mind, but he's so creative.
Oh,
and he
listen.
comes out with all kind of stuff.
And after he got hit, then what was the shell key or something key where the shells would move and all the things that happened. And that was the book because he went to Florida to recover. And then he wrote that book. What's it called? Something key. Skeleton key. And the shells that were around in the water. And it was like, he can capture stuff. But those first books, if you remember, In the Stand, which is my favorite Stephen King, and then he did an additional or addendum where you think the guy dies in the nuke in Vegas, Randall Flagg, but in the book that he did a second volume of or a second version of, Randall Flagg appears, and I think it's in Polynesia. And because of where they were, they didn't get hit with, remember, it's Captain Trips was the flu, was COVID. And Randall Flagg reappears. And he's on an island somewhere because they all think he's dead. Remember, they all think that the trash can man, one of my favorite people, the trash can man brings him back the bomb and blows him up.
He's wild.
But he got away. I mean, he's the devil.
You might enjoy this book by Patterson. He's got a varied background. He worked as an aide in a psychiatric
I know.
asylum, and then he also he worked for 15 or 20 years at J. Walter Thompson in New York.
I know. I mean, he's
got a lot of diverse history that makes for a good writer. And then he co-opted a lot of other people that he brought into, like nurses and war heroes and everything, that multiplied his ability to write. So,
I mean, it's
very creative.
I did a show with Ken Kesey, who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and
in his bus.
And he's Ken Kesey. He's like one of my literary idols. And so we were working at the hotel, and he came in. He's burly, he wrestled in college and everything. But I, everything about Cuckoo's Nest, he said that he had worked in a mental institution, and he got the idea and knocked that book out in a month. You believe that?
That's pretty special.
He said by the end of the week he knew the book, but he wrote another book. It's about the logging industry, and it's called Sometimes a Great Notion. And I for some reason, when I talked to him, I said, why do I think, as much as I love Cuckoo's Nest, I said, I thought that Sometimes a Great Notion had a lot of, and he said, thank you.
Is that the one with Paul Newman?
Well, there was a movie they made, but the book was about that family and everything. They were standing up against the big amalgam, which is really what Big Nurse is about in Cuckoo's Nest, is that McMurtry is when JP, he stands against the Big Nurse, and the Big Nurse is corporate America. It's Nurse Ratched. It's corporate America. It's the military-industrial complex. And he and I had a big long talk about it. We ended up having breakfast, and because the Big Nurse represented, anybody that was a spirit killer. And Billy Bibbit, remember Billy Bibbit? And he finally has sex with a woman, and Nurse Ratched comes in and says she's going to call his mother. And remember, then Billy commits suicide, and that was the end of for RP. He just had enough, and that's when everything happened. And then they lobotomized him, and the Indian Chief Broom. Boy, these are coming back. He kills him and escapes and goes back. So, I mean, it was like that book on so many different levels works. And I thought Nicholson did a good job in that movie.
Nurse Ratched represented so many weird women in people's lives and different ways to get to people and control.
I always thought it was more like the military-industrial complex, or Wright Mills' corporate state, or some form of fascism or something that Nurse Ratched was. She ran the ward. Remember the black guys they called the boys, and the people that gave out the psychotropic drugs, and you had to take. You had to take them. You could not take them.
But she knew the people, and she knew what made them tick, and what their weak points were, and how to pull their chain, and what would hurt them.
And she knew Billy's mother. And when Billy, when finally they arranged for it to go, they went on the boat and they got prostitutes. I think it's been so long, and Billy had sex, and he had overnight grown up. He wasn't a little boy, but he was still very fragile. And when Nurse Ratched came in and found him, Billy, I'm telling your mother, that was it, because his mother had screwed him up. I mean, that's such an intrinsic book. I haven't thought about that book in such a long time, but meeting him, and he's Ken Kesey. I mean, I met guys and go, man, you know who you are. But they were the Merry Pranksters. Remember all that stuff? And they drove Cowboy Neil drove the bus. And they went up and met the Hells Angels and went into the Redwoods, and everybody ate acid. And, they still tell those stories about him and the Magic Bus. And what was that guy's name that fed everybody? They called them diggers. Come on. But he went with them on the bus. And then I just found out that Owsley was on the lam from the feds, and he lived in Denver. I didn't know that. He was a roadie with the Grateful Dead, like the greatest acid producer in the history of making LSD, and he's hiding out here. And apparently Tim Leary was on the road with those guys too. I mean, what a time,
Sure glad they didn't have any smartphones.
Sure glad they weren't smart.
Well, they wouldn't have been able to do anything because the feds would have been all over them.
Well, they were looking for him. I mean, they were on the lam, and then they went to, who was I telling the story to? I meet Eldridge Cleaver, and Eldridge Cleaver, they were in Algeria, and they were in cells next to each other, and Leary was in one cell and Eldridge was in the other cell, and then Eldridge had a conversion, and I'm doing Nights at K-How, and he came in the studio, and I'd read Soul on Ice, I'd read all that stuff, and he came in and he was with these guys from the Mormon church, and I'm going, you're Eldridge Cleaver, and he was Eldridge Cleaver, and he had totally changed his whole view of the world. He didn't want to talk about Catherine Cleaver. I wanted to talk about her, and he knew Huey and he knew everybody, but he was a different guy. And he was Soul on Ice was one of those mandatory, you must read this book in the 60s. I don't know, Frank.
Well, I think you got a lot of stuff to write about. You just got to keep your focus. And
names have been changed to protect the innocent.
I'm sure it'll be a good book.
There's no innocence. There's no such thing. All right. We got him, Frank. Thanks. 303-696-1971. Good morning, everyone. Again, it's open lines, catch can talk radio. And one thing I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's worth mentioning again, is the debate, the vice presidential with J.D. Vance. And he refuses to acknowledge that Trump lost the 2020. And I thought to myself that Tampon Tim ran him all the way out to the end. And he had that question in his back pocket. And he was going to drop it. And he did. And he said, did he lose the 20? And he said, Tim, I'm focused on the future. What a damning non-answer. And he couldn't do it. And I thought to myself, is that called a choke? The Judas choke. All right, everybody. It's magic time, 11:40, 20 before 12. Dick's coming on the show. 303-696-1971. So it's open lines. This is the first time since we started this. We go wide open lines at 20 to 12. It's anyone's fault but mine. 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Yeti Roadie 60-quart wheeled cooler valued at $450.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
We got a Saturday, everybody, October 5, 2012. And in about 15 minutes, I'll go, good afternoon. 710 KNUS, good morning. Thank you all. 88 the high and 80 on Sunday, Monday, 83 degrees. 710 KNUS. And I'm happy today bringing back and talking about my friends at Water Pros. And Water Pros cares about the quality of your water. And we had these guys at the house, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I met Paul and everybody, and we still have the filtration system, and it's just really what's going on. The forever chemicals and microplastics and hard water, all the stuff you guys are drinking, your family's drinking, you're taking baths and showers in, and along they come. What they'll do to you for forever is they'll come out and test your water, and they'll show you. I mean, maybe your water's like 100% cool, and they're going to tell you. But you go to waterpros.net and sign up for your free in-home consultation. Don't let this go. Total cost is $3,195, $3,000 and $195. And you get the whole water softener, the reverse osmosis drinking water system fully installed, and it's a lifetime. So you sign up. I trust these guys. They have just been wonderful for us. You will as well. Water Pros is family-owned, veteran-owned business dedicated to providing you with the best in water treatment, far less money and far better than the other guys. Go to Water Pros, waterpros.net today, and request your free water test, or call 303-862-5554. Again, easy number, 303, then 862-5554, 303-862-5554, 303-862-5554, and ask them to come and test your water. They'll show you how they do it. Ask for the Peter Boyles special. This has to be the text message of the day. Peter, you're a negative American hater of this country. Go straight to hell. Like to thank my ex-wife. This is Gary on the radio show. Good morning.
Oh, Peter, to be a little bit more on the positive side about Tina Peters, it's really sad how she let fame and fortune put her in jail. But, if I were to visit Tina, I'd say, Tina, I've got some good news for you. You're not going to have to worry about the price of gas or eggs. And my pillows are on sale for $14.99.
Yeah, I mean, he plays out in it, Mike Lindell. And
yeah, sorry, guys.
No, you say, go ahead.
Yesterday Jeff was saying that he thought maybe 9 years was too long, and I thought a fair sentence would be 3 years in jail. So I think that the judge probably knew
she's not going to do 9.
That she's only.
Yeah, she won't do 9 years. She'll do 3. I mean, one of the things about state time is 1 day of good behavior, you get 1 day off. The feds, I believe you do. If you get a 10-year in the feds, you do every year of the 10 years. But the state, if you're like, you get a good day for a good day. So, and even then, I mean, she's 68 years old, I think. And, you don't want her in prison. I mean,
yeah, 3 years for someone that age is significant. But Peter, have you ever been in jail or prison?
Yes, I've been in jail.
So I've only been in jail once, and it was only overnight. And I tell you what, it's one of the most distressing, depressing situations. And to think I was going to be there for 3 years, I would lose my mind. So she's going to learn a really hard lesson.
I got a man sitting in the studio with me that did that time. And, you watch that stuff on TV about jails and prisons. And I mean, I got friends that did time and came home and talked, and it's a horror show. I mean, it's, you don't want to go to jail, and you sure as hell don't want to go to prison. It's just.
Yeah, you and I like to go to the gym every morning. Well, you're not going to the gym every morning.
Well, it's just, there's one in the background. It's jail. I mean, but it's not supposed to be a good time, and it's a bad time. You went to jail. Anybody that's ever been in jail knows that you don't want to go to jail. I mean, it's just. I'm looking at a man who went to jail, and But one of the things, and I don't know if it's still, it isn't the same, just because what somebody's talking about, it used to be when I was a kid and a guy went to jail and they were neighborhood guys and they were generally, they were connected. But the idea was when they came home, they had done their time and you left them, like it was no, I guess it was a stigma. I don't know. But when they came back, people said they went to college. That was what they were. Whereas he went to college. But when they came back, people said, okay, you paid your debt to society. And you listen to this young man talk. He never got away. They chased him down. So
I saw on your favorite news channel, Kyle Clark, 2 days before her sentencing, he interviewed her and he asked her, do you think you're going to jail? And she kind of laughed and said, if I thought I was going to jail, I'd be on a beach somewhere.
Surprise, Tina. They just what they call it, mandated her over, or what's it called, when the judge just sent her off. She didn't get to take the tour and appear on radio shows and be called a hero. That didn't happen for her. And it shouldn't have happened. I mean, if you can't come to terms with what she did, and I listened to so much bad radio over it, then how can you expect anybody to, unless you're playing to the crowd, but how do you expect, I'm talking about the conspiracy theorist behind microphones. She's a criminal. She got everything that she had coming. And for people to defend her, it's beyond sad, because there is no defense. What she tried to do was abate the Constitution, overthrow the process. It's never, we have peacefully transferred. And the fact that she tried to stop it, and the people that she's been tied into, you watch. And that ain't over by a long shot.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, thank you. All right, so coming up, Dick Wadhams will talk to us a little bit. I think this Tina Peters thing is just, it's more of just this great sadness of Tina Peters and the people. She could have never pulled this off without tons of help. And of course, Peters allowed, she went with Mike Lindell. And I remember, man, when people used to call this radio show and just wait for Mike Lindell. Mike's going to show you the truth. Some other idiot's going to show you the truth. So it didn't happen. And she went with Lindell. She broke all those rules, and the sheriffs and the judges knew it. And so she catches that time. She won't do it. She won't do the whole time. So the lamenting that took place on talk radio was absolutely sad, that you couldn't look at this woman. She's not one thing has anything to do. If you look at all the charges and the beefs, there wasn't anything out there that was talking about, and you tried to abate the election. Although that's what's hanging over all of it. But it was the charges, the things that she did. She's by no means innocent, and she doesn't regret anything. And I thought that now the judge is being death threatened, which is like standard operating procedure anymore. That, I went through it with John Eastman, who has now been disbarred and charged and RICO'd. But boy, I tell you what, my John Eastman experience was, I want to call that judge and say, hey, dude, I can relate. But the 2 years after that John Eastman moment for me, family threats and threats on me and threats on Billy and they're chumps. Not one time, and I'll break and we'll come back. Not one time since Eastman fell on his face and was exactly who I said he was. Not one time did anybody ever call me, text me, send me a snail mail, send me an email. Peter, I'm sorry. You were right. So, no one. I had my family attacked, everything that happened, and I got some good friends in law enforcement that really helped me go through that. The threats. Now here it is. The guy's lost his license. He's going to be charged in Jack Smith. He's been RICO'd in Georgia. I think the Republican Party of Colorado still sends him a check. I'll ask Wadhams. But not one time did anybody come and call up the radio show or wait in the lobby or wait outside or all the stuff that happened, right? We found a guy here in the building. Not one time did somebody say, hey, Peter, I'm sorry. Women that I knew that said things, and I ran into them. Not a word. And I got big shoulders. I can take the heat. We went through a lot tougher stuff than that. But I just thought it was really interesting that said and done, this guy's going to go to the joint. I mean, he's headed there. He attempted to overthrow the Constitution of this country that men and women have literally fought and died for. And they tried to overthrow it. Tina tried to overthrow it. Giuliani tried to overthrow it. The Kraken tried. Jenna Ellis tried. They all tried. More and more and more. I was reading last night of the indictments in Georgia. Those guys tried. Lynn Wood, the Ramsey's lawyer, started threatening me. I said, Lynn, you haven't threatened me in years. Good to have you back. But think that through. No one ever said, now they're just mad because Tina's going to joint. Why don't you call up and say, I'm sorry, because I thought she was innocent. Because I was told other things on talk radio and on the internet about she was a cherry. Well, guess what? But I think, so what? But now, and Peters will go to jail and forever saying she's innocent. And that's what happens. All right. So what we got, we'll come back with Dick and we'll continue with open lines. 710 KNUS. Good morning, everybody. Now we're about to say good afternoon. 88, 80, and 83. And we're going to go to Devil's Head and ride motorcycles. Here we go. 710 KNUS. Now I get to say it. Good afternoon, everyone. Saturday afternoon, October the 5th, 2024. I'm Peter Boyles, Radio Free Denver, on the air everywhere. 88 will be the high. It's going to be windy. 80 on Sunday, 83 on Monday. Our guest that was here, he's still actually sitting in the studio. He I didn't know he rode motorcycles. We had met, and he's got his bike outside, and Kumbe's bike's outside, and I'm going to take him to Devil's Head Chopper with me, and we're going to go for a ride. We finished up my speaking in my mind about Tina Peters and things that go with it. Without further ado, please say good morning and welcome back to Dick Wadhams, who has gone through all of this crap as well. Dick, good morning. Thanks for doing the show.
Good morning, Peter. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. Did you hear the end of the hour, the things I said before? I want to say them again.
No, I did not see. I did not hear them. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, no, there's no big deal. This has been a very despicable week for talk radio, defending this woman. Why do you think that's going on?
Well, Peter, I just think it all leads back to this whole stolen election conspiracy movement. I don't know what other word to use. I mean, the people who subscribe to these stolen election conspiracies truly deep down believe in them, and they've just become, and of course it's egged on by Donald Trump. He continues to talk about how the election was stolen from him in 2020, and Tina, that was ultimately what drove Tina Peters. It sounds like that she believed that the machines in Mesa County were compromised, and you remember, Peter, even at the end of the trial, she even raised the new culprit that the Serbians were. I mean, like, where did that come from?
No, that was amazing. So how did we get here, I guess, is the better one. And what was her role in all of this? And I was trying to explain. I followed it pretty close. I'm not a Jimmy Sengenberger, but I got close to it. And not once did they charge her with anything to do with the outcome of the election. It's the things that she did.
And the thing about it is, Peter, I'm no election expert, and certainly I'm not a county clerk, but I am told by those who are that the concern she had, she could have easily checked them out legally and appropriately. But no, she had to do this cloak and dagger stuff and hiring or using the identity of another person. And I mean, it's just, and then of course, once she did that, she became a hero. She became kind of a martyr figure.
Absolutely.
And flying on, as the judge pointed out in his remarks, she's taking trips on Lindell's plane, and then she gets greeted like a hero at all these rallies. And so I think she just got lost in it.
I come back to this. Dick Wadhams is here. The settlement in the case against Fox News, $787.5 million. We don't, the best of my knowledge, we don't know what Newsmax just paid off, because they were saying, we can't wait to go to court. Another group that couldn't wait to go to court. Well, then they gagged, and OAN gagged, and they ain't done. And Smartmatic hasn't even begun. And of course, there's, I think, major lawsuits coming in the state of Colorado, because this is the epicenter of many lies that were told. So, and she was championed by all of these people.
Yep.
And she blamed the election equipment for Donald Trump's loss, which has been so discounted. And so, and she's not going to do 9 years. I mean, that was crocodile tears Monday through Friday, but she's not going to do that time.
Well, and there's still a federal angle to this, Pete, as the FBI refuses to comment, which they all never do comment on these things, but there apparently is still a federal investigation of some kind that might be out there too. Yeah.
I mean, you bet. I mean, and she repeated all those lies about the 2020 presidential. Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden, and it was a planned fraud on a grand scale, was her words. What?
And what's amazing is, I mean, Donald Trump won Mesa County.
Yeah. Oh, he did. Margin. Yes, he did. Yeah.
And It makes no sense to me.
What did you think of the judge, Matthew Barrett?
You know, Peter, I didn't watch every moment of the trial, but I watched a big chunk of it. I bet I watched over half of the trial, and I was really impressed by him. He was professional. I think he bent over backwards at times to accommodate the objections of her attorneys. Now, I'm sure they probably think he was abusive to them, but I think he was no nonsense, and I was really impressed by him. And but reading his, I didn't see his remarks.
Great.
But reading the transcript of his remarks were unbelievable. I mean, I thought he hit it right on the head.
And I don't think
impressive guy.
I don't think she had the best legal team by any stretch. But how are you going to defend her? I mean, I don't know.
Well, they kept trying to divert the trial to the stolen election conspiracy theory.
I know.
Of course, and the judge kept repeatedly said, "No, this is not admissible. This is not why we're here." Yeah. And of course, she thinks that's why she lost. But anyway.
No. I mean, it's identity. I wrote the counts down. Attempting to influence a public servant, criminal impersonation, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, 1 count of identity theft, 1st-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, failing to comply with the Secretary of State. And the prosecutors have a second image of the election computer was taken after it was upgraded. The next day, they say Peters mailed a package to this guy who had taken the first image, but then turned around and left before the second one could be completed. And that guy's not been charged. So they got a list of things, man. The
other thing that was impressive to me, Pete, was when the county commissioner from Mesa County, Cody Davis, said that all of this has cost the county $1.5 million because they had to replace equipment and other costs because of her actions. I mean, that's reprehensible.
Dick Wadhams is here, and it's interesting is then that judge said you have no remorse, and I don't think she does.
Last week, Peter, she was attacking the judge as recently as last week, and I'm thinking, if I'm about to get sentenced, I don't think I'd be out there attacking the judge.
No, I mean, but they want this. I mean, they welcome the victimization. As a matter of fact, they want to be known as victims, all of them.
Yes.
And they've been victimized by fill in the blank. It doesn't matter.
Well, you and I both know she'll become a martyr now.
She's one now.
A lot of people.
Oh my God. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was I watched the vice presidential debate. And when it opened, Tampon Tim kind of looked like Don Rickles, and then he looked like Khrushchev, and then he acted like Don Knotts. I mean, the guy's he's really struggling, and Vance looked good. Vance looked great.
Yeah.
And then we get to this end of it, and the little I know about this stuff, but they must have kept that. They must have tuned him up to ask the question about the 2020 election.
Yes.
And Vance choked.
He did, and of course, he was kind of be between a rock and a hard place, because he can't be counterintuitive to his boss.
No, he can't.
No. And so he had to, and yet I don't think he wanted to say it was stolen.
No, he tried not to say it. Not to say it.
I know. Yeah. And So.
And I'm watching the guy. I'm going, because I read Vance's book, and and actually saw the movie. The movie and the book there's a lot of differences, but I mean, I love what he's overcome and who he's become, and he was dressed. He just looked great.
He did,
and he was scoring points, and then I strongly believe that that Tim's handlers said, wait till there's about 4 minutes left or 5 minutes left in the night, and then pull that on them, because people will remember that. You always remember the last thing, and then he turns around and jams him again and asks him about whether he would challenge the election results this year. And he still couldn't answer.
No. Well, Trump has put him in a box on this stuff. Yeah. And of course, Trump is already preparing arguments why this election is
stolen. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But that goes back to what they did. They did it before. So, what's the outcome? If we were in November, what would you be saying?
Peter, I got to tell you, I mean, it's a cliche by now that it's a really close election and anybody could win, but it really is. I mean, and even the 7 states that will determine the election, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. One of those candidates could win all 7 or lose all 7.
Absolutely.
Or some combination thereof. I mean, this is really phenomenal what we're entering into. What are we now, 37 days or no? Yeah. 30 days away from 30. Yeah. So
when do the ballots land here? I got that guide in the mail. When do the ballots turn here?
They're dropped in the mail this coming Friday, October 11th.
Wow.
So they will start hitting mailboxes, I suppose, as early as Saturday the 12th, but certainly into that next week, October. What would that be? 12, 13, 14, starting Monday, October 14th. People will be getting ballots. Yeah, that's real. Yeah.
One of the things, and to get the last comment from you, Dick Wadhams is here, is although you can find these websites that average out the polling data and, they take 20 polls and come up with numbers. It's the money line. I'm convinced.
Yeah.
And there's 2 of them. They're out of Britain. They're offshore platforms, but you can bet. And the smart money right now, I checked again last night, smart money's on her. Smart money. But she's got the better's edge.
Yeah, I mean, I think she does have a slight edge right now, but it's certainly not invincible. But, Peter, the other thing on the Tina Peters thing is that it is appalling to see the threats and the cries for retribution against the judge. I mean, it's just, and I guess it's totally predictable, but it's just reprehensible.
Well, I'm sitting talking to a friend, and I said, I went through it when me and John Eastman, and
you did.
And here's John now, who's been disbarred in Cal. They took his law license in California. He's been RICO'd in Georgia. Jack Smith's got a lineup on him. And this is not a lament. It's just simply a statement of fact. Not one person. And I'll tell you what, those 6-8 months after me and Professor Peterson had our very short interview, and not one person ever called up or stopped me or sent a text or a phone call and said, Peter, you were right and I'm sorry.
I'm sure you didn't.
No, and it really, it wasn't long. I mean, he talked about, he had these signed affidavits that people saw the election stolen. And
I remember.
And I said, Professor, I'll sign an affidavit for you right now that I saw Bigfoot in my driveway this morning. That's why there's affidavits in courtrooms. Nobody takes them. And you got to be sitting.
I was listening that morning, Peter. That was an amazing.
It was a low light, but what I think is interesting was after all of that, and I do believe that I was set up for that, but that's okay. I'm cool with it. It was set up stuff, and and now where is he? I don't know. He's
got a lot of he's involved in a lot of legal actions right now. And of course, the Colorado Republican Party hired him.
I was going to ask you that. Does he still get a check from Colorado?
I don't know. The judge threw out the motion for a summary decision or whatever the terminology is. So the question is the party going to continue this suit? I'm not sure they've decided. But but he's still their attorney if they pursue it further. So he stands to be part of it. So we'll see what they do.
Still beloved.
Yes.
So read you a message real quick. Pete, your two-way You're way too good to be saying tampon Tim. That was a great jacket to give him that.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Yeah, I mean, it's like,
all right.
We will see what happens next. I have no idea. Yeah. All right, man. Thanks. Thanks,
Okay.
Dick. All right. 303-696-1971. Lines are open. What did you think? And by the way, in the debate, once again, the downfall is always where you have to not lie, but you lie. And I watched it and I was going, Vance is doing great. I'm loving it. And I do believe this. I'll never know it, or maybe somebody will write the book and tell you. But when Tim, we won't call him that. We won't call him Tampon Tim. We'll call him Tim. And Trump has continued publicly to repeat the falsehoods about the election. And Donald Trump again refused last month to admit he lost. Walt said it was important to be honest. That's one of those turning points, and he puts him in a box, and he can't come out and say it, and that's so damning. All right, what time it is? Is that 19 after 12? 12:19. Yeah, we'll take a pause here. We'll come back, take calls. 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station. Good morning, everybody. It's time to talk about Danny Kaplis. And he's a good friend. That's the most important part for me. And when you choose a lawyer you got to have somebody who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you and everybody else involved in the case. And we talked about Danny growing up and everything that's happened with him, and dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. And Dan's believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. And Dan's also believed to have won the largest truck crash, the verdict here in Colorado history. That's big. Danny's the guy. And I always talk about with my family and how he was there for us. And Dan Kaplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on percentage fee basis so he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard of ability to pay. If you need a man's help, Dan Kaplis at 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551, or hit Dan Kaplis Law at CAPLIS.com. If you need the help, the man is there. You ready, Adam? Let's do it.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Yeti Roadie 60-quart wheeled cooler valued at $450.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Gotta love it. 88 the high, 80 Sunday, Monday, 83 degrees, 710 KNUS. Let's go to Michael. Thank you, Michael. Good morning. Or good morning. Good afternoon, Michael. You're on a radio show.
Peter, great to be with you. First of all, I just got to say, Jimmy Sengenberger did an outstanding job today, and we are really lucky to have him as a caller, a contributor to KNUS. He did an outstanding report on the Tina Peters case. So, Jimmy, thank you. If you're
Jimmy's come a long way. He's really come a long way. He's done great.
Yeah. Oh, he's an inspiration to a lot of people, inspiration to me, and he's an incredible talent. And Denver is very lucky to have him for sure. But Peter, what I was going to talk about today, I haven't really heard a lot of people bring this up, but the Trump watches. So he just released a watch. It's $100,000, what he's calling a Trump victory tourbillon watch. It's a golden diamond watch. And I just kind of wanted to get your opinion. Do you think that that's a good strategy to do kind of like a campaign like that so close to the election, like a watch campaign like that?
You know, I saw that there are $100,000 watches, and he's made, or somebody's made, I think they made a little over 1,300 of them. And he's done the same thing with the Trump Bible. He did the same thing with the shoes, the steaks. I mean, one thing, you got to admire about Trump is, and it calls into question, I read some editorials about, it calls into question, does he have the wallet that he says he has? But he's collecting a lot of dough, and apparently she's collecting a lot of dough too. But the watch, there was a story this morning on Drudge that is at Oklahoma City or someplace in Oklahoma, when they got down to Bibles, and the only Bible that would fit the profile that they wanted was the Lee Greenwood Donald Trump Bible. And it's, I didn't know that Bible's $99, or at least according to Drudge, the Bible's between $90 and $100. Well, when a Politico puts his own name on the Bible, but then again, it's legit and you can raise funds. So the watch, and I don't know how the watches are selling.
Yeah. Well, I saw somebody, a commentator, a liberal commentator on YouTube talking about how, let's say Putin, for example, bought, 5 or 10 of these watches at $100,000 a pop, that could be used for influence, where, if a foreign leader needed a favor or something, that could be done for influence. I don't know if, that's realistic or not, but it's an idea that was thrown out there.
Yeah. I mean, 100 grand's not much when it comes to buying people off at that level. Plus, remember, I mean, Trump really is, I don't know what his real wealth is. It's a hell of a lot bigger than mine, but, and he sold those gold shoes, the tennis shoes, running shoes. Yeah. And he sold steaks, and he's always, like that, but that's a hustle. And I say this with admiration. He hustles. He's a hustler.
I just wonder if that money is going to his campaign.
Oh, sure.
Where is the money going to from all this?
Well, that, another great question. I assume, but then don't assume anything, right?
Right.
But somebody's asking about Trump condoms. No, God,
that's a little
much. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know the outcome of this. I think right now he's in jeopardy, and I also think that Diddy is the October surprise. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to pursue that with people and call the show, but there is talk on the web sheets that doesn't mean anything, that there's video of the parties and that Trump's at one of the parties. It doesn't mean anything, but right. he was at a party. Well, Diddy's going to take, if he lives, he's going to take a lot of guys down. Ooh, a lot of guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why I think Epstein got killed.
Yeah, well, I just think, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed your earlier guest, and I just think it's interesting how a lot of these women come out so far down the road after, they said this whole incident happened, even with Trump, and it's kind of funny. It's like, it's when it benefits them. It's when it's convenient for them. They come out and make these.
See, that's one of those very precarious things. I really had spoke with a dear friend last night about that book. I said, do you do the book or you don't do the book? And I said, when I found out that he had been suppressed, I said, no, you got to do the book now that you find out the guy was suppressed. So, and he turns out he's a good guy. He's got his motorcycle here. We're going to take off at 1 o'clock and go for a ride. But no, I don't have answers. I really don't.
Yeah.
Good call. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
We have a line open, 303-696-1971. Good afternoon, everybody. It's open lines until 1 o'clock. Adam's got the con. You ready, pal? Pull the pen.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Yeti Roadie 60-quart wheeled cooler valued at $450.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Afternoon. It's a Saturday. Thank you. 303-696-1971 with full lines. I'm Peter Boyles, Radio Free Denver. Let's go to the phones with jam lines. We go to Kim. Kim, you called. Thank you.
Oh, am I?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I? Oh,
yes,
because
ma'am.
I'm on this side of the street. Oh, I'm just thinking, but yeah, thank you. Whatever. Okay, you know what? It's our country's going to go down. That's my only concern.
Who's going to go down? Ma'am, you there? Kim, did she say he's going to go down? Who? Kim?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I waited. I knew you were still there. Yes.
How you doing, Peter?
I'm well.
Good. Hey, Peter. You and Dick are just trash talking Trump, and I'm trying to figure out what is your motive. Do you want socialism?
That's don't critique the show. This is
you're wasting people's time.
Well,
apparently you can't do anything else better with your time.
You're calling the show.
You can't get a better guest on. You can't seem to stop. You cannot seem to to stand up for Trump. Who, he's got problems, whatever, but at least he's not a socialist or a communist.
What's a communist?
I'm not going to, you ought to know that by now. So trust me, you're picking one side by talking
No, actually,
him. That's all I can say.
That's not true. I mean, it's not even close to true. What did we do this morning since 9 o'clock that it was a lie?
Listen, I've been listening long enough, and that's what it sounds like to me.
I know,
you are trash talking.
Well, you can say.
No, you're picking. You're nitpicking crap. That's all you're doing.
Okay, then why do you listen?
God bless.
Why do you
Good
listen?
luck.
Why do you listen?
No, you know what? Because I have to right now. I'm in my car. You
don't have to.
On.
I think there's another 40.
I dislike listening.
Right.
I really do.
Well, then thank you.
Yeah, God bless.
You too, ma'am. Anything else? We go to Lamar. Lamar, you're on a show, man. I like your name. Good morning.
Hey,
afternoon.
Yeah, I took that name after my father. Peter, if you're going to ride today, it's pretty windy out here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm over in Arvada area. Hey, listen, I just wanted to ask you something. I don't know too much about politics or anything like that.
Neither do I.
I listen, but just what do you think on November 5th that Donald Trump wins the election for president of the United States and J.B. Vance is in there for vice president? Then suddenly something happens to the vice president, like Donald Trump might say, "You're out of here. I don't want you anymore." And I've been thinking about this. I'm wondering if Donald Trump might pick Lauren Boebert. Am I saying that right?
Boebert.
Lauren? Yeah. As vice president.
He can do.
And what would happen between the Trump and her?
Oh, that's great. Remember this. When there's an opening, a president gets to select. In other words, when Richard Nixon lost Spiro Agnew, he was trying to get Rockefeller in. Rockefeller dies, and he brings in, I think, a very, very fine man, and he makes him the vice president. It's happened before. You get to pick with approval. So if something were to happen to Vance, and then Trump would have he could, as Nixon did, he could pick.
He could pick. I was just thinking that woman, Lauren Boebert.
Sure, I mean, he could pick anybody.
But you know what? She would be right next to him, and she'd go gun ho.
Well, yeah, I mean, he can do.
Both of them would.
Yeah.
They would run this country straight.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those. That's why when you watch that debate on between the vice presidential hopefuls, Both of those guys, one of them is going to be a heartbeat away from the presidency. One of the two of them, whoever wins, one of the two of them will be a heartbeat away from the big chair. And that's all, when we think about Roosevelt, who, when he wins his fourth term, he's extremely sick. He's very sick. And they had jettisoned a guy named Wallace, and they picked up this rookie from Missouri, Harry Truman. But they made the choice. And it's interesting now that when I just read all the stuff, but Harry Truman did not know, I think most people know this, Harry Truman did not know about the atomic bomb. They never told him. And they had to tell him, and I think it was even like 2 days after FDR's dead, and they pull him aside and tell him, we got this bomb. He didn't know about it. So, and one of the things, if you read about Lyndon Johnson and Jack Kennedy, they kept Lyndon Johnson an arm's length away. They hated Lyndon Johnson. Bobby Kennedy hated Lyndon Johnson.
I know it.
They called him Uncle Cornpone behind his back. That's what they did. Yeah. Yep. So, it's flighty stuff, and it's one-off math, but it's what it is. So
yeah. I'm just wondering, I keep thinking about Donald Trump. I know he's going to win the election. Okay. I do know that. I knew it from the very beginning, because all this has been ever since he got office. It's going to be a witch hunt, and it's still a witch hunt. Everything is falling apart in this country. And I think we need two strong leaders.
I'm reading this morning, unemployment is at a new low, stock market's at a new high. They're dropping all these different things. And I don't know what the truth is. I'm just some idiot that gets to do a once a week radio show for a couple of hours. But all the economic indicators it's up, and and again, one of the things that I've learned from reading is presidents cannot give you an economy. They can screw it up. But when those people used to say, Bill Clinton gave us an economy, and I would say, well, then why didn't Herbert Hoover? Why didn't Harry Truman?
Right.
Why didn't Jimmy Carter? Why didn't they use that power that they say that when Bill Clinton was president, the economy was pretty good? Actually, he caught a wave from Ronald Reagan. And if you read it, so then they say, well, Donald Trump gave us a good economy. No, he didn't screw it up. But if these presidents have this power that the Democrats or Republicans say that presidents have, in the past, Lamar, why the hell didn't they use it? When this country's on its ass after 1929, why didn't Herbert Hoover use that power? When FDR comes into office, why didn't he use that power? When you get on this list of seeing these things, what about this power that they have? Well, they don't. They don't.
Right.
Have it. They can screw it up, but they don't have the power in spite of what
they don't.
No, they don't.
Yep.
They don't.
I agree.
So, give me a last.
All I can say is, Pete, you're going to see Donald Trump get into office, and you're going to see Lauren Boebert be vice president.
There you go.
You watch.
I did.
You watch. If I ain't right.
We'll see what happens. Thanks, man. All right, I got to read this because it's like I've been staying away from the wall here today. Peter, you're nothing but a dirty, rotten, no good, stinky rat. But we listen every Saturday. That's a funny line. All right, let's do this thing. 303-696-1971. Hang on.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Yeti Roadie 60-quart wheeled cooler valued at $450.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
It's the system. All right, let's reset. Something happened in the pause and we didn't get it. It's October 5, Saturday morning, 2024. Now it's Saturday afternoon, and 88 the high, 80 Sunday, and 83 on Monday. Got my scooter outside, and we're gonna go see our friends at Devil's Head. Go see the boys at Devil's Head. And then tomorrow might be a good leaf ride. We'll do that. All right, 303-696-1971. It's been a remarkable morning. I love talk radio. Adam is clearing the calls. I do want to say this. I got a 4-hour show one day a week in a state that's going to go blue. And this is a tough conversation to have. But in Colorado, and you vote for Donald Trump, you're not going to, it's going to be in the general population, but you're not going to win. The Colorado electoral votes are going to go to her. It's just like in California. All right, this is Sarah. Love your name, Sarah Smile. Sarah, you're up. Good morning.
The lady that just called in about Donald Trump, when you asked her the definition of communism, I could tell she didn't know the definition of communism. And I bet you do.
Oh, so what? I mean, that's nothing, but I hear communists screamed again on talk radio by people that I believe never read the manifesto or never read Das Kapital or never read the conditions when Marx lived and what he wrote about. And, it's just kind of like this, I don't know. I mean, it's like talking about he's a Christian and somebody said, well, what was Christ about? Well, I don't know. And that's the part. It's a very unintellectual approach to life.
Well, she also stated about socialism. I bet you if you asked her what is socialism, she wouldn't know that either.
Well,
there's this rhetoric that people hear and they just repeat, but they never bother to look up the definition.
That's all true. I mean, and the socialists are something totally different. What I believe the Democratic Party to be is they were called Fabians. At the turn of the 18th into the 19th century, 19th century into 20th century, in Great Britain, there were a group of intellectuals that they had witnessed the Bolsheviks, and they had seen all these things that had happened, and they didn't want to give any of that up. They were, George Bernard Shaw and, all these wealthy power elite British. So they wanted to bring in socialism by vote, that you would tell people how much they were going to love it, and then they would become it. And if you saw their original, I don't know if mascot, but letterhead, it was a wolf, truly, that had a sheep's skin on its body, like the wolf in sheep's clothing. And what they were saying to you, what they were saying was, we're going to bring this in. And I do believe, I believe there are parts of the Democratic Party that they're Trotskyist. I believe that there's people in that party today who are active, actually office holders that are Trotskyist. The other group of them there's no question in my mind who they are. And the real question is, who are they? And I think that's what I'm watching in terms of what the Democrats are and what they're about. But who knows? I think if what I'm looking at now, I think the Republicans will hold the Senate, which will stop all the stuff that is one way. I think the Democrats will hold the House or keep the House. And the president's job, the coin's in the air. I don't know yet what's going to happen, because that's the significance. The Republicans will be the dominant force inside of the Senate. The Democrats will hold the House, and it's the big chair. What about that?
I never listened to the pundits anymore because they all said Hillary Clinton was going to win, and she did not.
Well, and again, what happened with Hillary Clinton was that the read on Hillary Clinton was dead wrong. And people, that's why I tell you, looking at the money line, if you look at the internet, you can look at the money line out of Great Britain. Far more accurate because it's people laying down their money. When the pollsters call, and I've been contacted by pollsters or sent something on the internet, I just ignore it. I don't think there's anything you can do about it. But I do think that it's pretty tight. This race is very tight right now.
According to what I've read, it's very tight.
Yeah.
But when I hear a word like communism or socialism, I look it up in the dictionary so I'll know what people are talking about. I don't just use it and not know what it means. And it's too bad that I would bet money that lady didn't know what socialism or communism meant. It's just rhetoric.
Well, and once again, like I said, it's talk radio, and no one is its master, and it and the beat goes on. I mean, I'm more intrigued with talk radio now at this end of my life than I ever was.
Well, maybe if she's still listening, she'll think about it and go, yeah, maybe I should look up his words.
No, because
the next time I'll be asking.
No. When I listen to those people, and I'm no defender of Karl Marx, but I listen to this stuff. I go, you have no idea what you're talking about. Sarah, I'm going to try and grab one call before we get out of here. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
All right. Be safe. Hey, Becky, you're on the air, but you got about a minute and a half for how much do you have? How much time does Becky have? I'm going to be told 2 minutes. Becky, you got 2 minutes. Good morning or afternoon.
Good morning.
Okay.
Hey, I just wanted to tell you, I just want to ask you to watch Trump in Butler, PA today and tell me he's not going to win.
Well, I don't know who's going to win. Do you? I mean, I don't know who's going to win this.
He's going to win.
Okay.
The support for him is so obvious, and it's so blatantly obvious that Kamala is an idiot and does not have the support. And her running mate is a joke.
And we will end it on that. Everybody got it in. Thank you so much. Adam, thank you. I'm going to go light the bikes up. Take care of yourself. See you next Saturday here at 9 o'clock on 710 KNUS.